And you are watching another Blewett Blitz film review. He has that ability to, trust me, he definitely does. Just his ability to catch balls outside of his frame, his leaping ability, his ability to hang in the air, his yak ability, it's all there. Lowers his helmet, low man wins, bang, rocks a guy.
Hall running free, Brees Hall inside the 10, he's gonna score!
The corners all do their job. You know, if you look at the picture right here, lock.
3rd and 1. Stevens always drilled. What a great defensive play.
I don't try to Monday morning quarterback any of the reviews I do, and I'll try to be honest with a lot of the things I put up. And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blewett Blitz. Don't forget, you can find us on the podcast app. Kyle, my man, there's football in about 2 hours and 45 minutes or so. How you doing? Are you excited?
Yeah, if you want to call it football. I don't get nearly.
Don't even start. I want to increase the energy tonight. I was thinking about it before, like an hour before. Sorry, Car, to already interrupt you. I was like, I'm going to get on here and be so excited like I was last week. And Kyle's like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter a lot. So I would appreciate your energy being up, Kyle. So,
Joe, I think you can attest to this. I have lots of energy. And you want to talk about positivity, Joe? I mean, come on. If we're talking about positivity at a game, who's much more positive, me or you?
I don't think me going to a Jets game, waking up at 6:30 in the morning, watching them and getting blown out after drinking however many beers we do before we go into the game, Kyle. You probably count them at some point. It's a few
mixed in with some shots too. Yeah.
Mixed in with some shots, and then you are a little bit more tired. You come out of the game, you're angry. So I would not take that as my actual opinion of the Jets, and I apologize for that. So
yeah. Listen. I am excited. Don't get me wrong. It's just my level of excitement, despite we haven't seen football in many, many, many months now, for tonight versus September 11th, the excitement level is uncomparably higher for September 11th. I mean, there's just no comparison, but listen, it's gonna be cool. I mean, like when you
I don't know if this is like a good, I don't know if this is like a good comparison, Kyle, but it's almost like, listen, not to be too I don't want to be too like grotesque here, but it's like your first time touching a boob when you're 13 is cool. But now that you're like, now that I'm 30, it's like, oh, okay, it is what it is. You know, like it's exciting at the moment, but in a couple of years, aka a couple of weeks for us, the real thing is the really exciting part, you know. So the boob doesn't matter so much. Tonight's kind of the boob.
Didn't expect it to go there, but there it went.
There you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, there's a lot to be said for this game as opposed to like a practice. I mean, like, so I went to a practice, what was it, on the 27th? Honestly, I was a little bored at the practice, truthfully. In that practice, there was like no receivers there. Garrett Wilson hurt his ankle on like one of the first team plays, full team plays. And then, you know, there was no Corey Davis, there was no Cobb, there was no Lazard that day. I mean, it was just Rodgers thrown to a bunch of Jags. So it was a little boring. And, you know, like when you go to a practice, I mean, there's no tackling to the ground. Matter of fact, one player, I don't even know who he must have been, some backup linebacker or something. I couldn't catch out what his number was. He actually did bring a guy to the ground, and then like it led to like a fight because you're not supposed to do that. So it's just so different. So listen, you can actually sack a quarterback tonight. One of the reasons why Rodgers is not playing, he hasn't played a preseason game in I don't know how many years. And he better not play one this year either. Even if it's that last one against the Giants, that's all the more reason not to play him, because you know the Giants are going to want to come after him. So yeah, they better not play him, and I don't think they will. But it is very different in the sense that you can actually bring the quarterback to the ground. You know, you can actually, if you're a linebacker, you can actually tackle the running back. If you're a running back, I mean, you know, practice, like, you know, we would always hear these reports about, oh, this running back had a great day and whatever. It's like, yeah, well, it's kind of hard to evaluate a running back when he can't actually like really legit break a tackle. So there is a level of difference tonight. You're going against an opposing team. One of the reasons why I think like I was a little intrigued to go to some of the joint practices last year with the Falcons and even this year with the Bucks, although I'm not going to go to one with the Bucks. I decided, nah, I'm not going to do it. I already went to one. That's good enough for me. Is because there is something else, like, you know, everyone remembers the D'Angelo Hall, DeAndre Hopkins thing where the two of them went at it. It's like there is an extra level of juice when you're going against someone from the other team, and there is that level of stuff tonight. So I don't want to dampen anyone's mood or whatever, but it's still preseason football.
Yeah, no, I'm still really excited because it's tangible. You can watch, and you can take things away from preseason. Last preseason we were impressed with Tony Adams. We talked about Tony Adams, and look where Tony Adams is now. He's a starting free safety. We were impressed with Zonovan Knight for the most part, and look where Zonovan Knight is now. So there's stuff there's things you can take away, which we'll talk about. Zach Wilson, Becton battles for backup spots, whether it be offensive line, defensive line, receiver, tight end. Like there's a lot to talk about. We'll get into that about the preseason game and what we're looking at with it. Obviously, not many of the starters will play. Maybe one or two does. Like Michael Carter the second. Like is he or Michael Carter the running back? Is he like a quasi starter tonight, or is he considered a starter? Does he play? Jordan Whitehead, like any of those guys play? I'm not really too sure, but we'll see. But yeah, there's plenty to talk about with all of that. And Kyle, but before we get into the game, we'll talk a little bit about practice and what we've been seeing and what we've been hearing. Obviously, with a grain of salt, we know that we've seen guys light it up in the practices and do absolutely nothing in the regular season, and vice versa. So you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But we'll talk about some
players who didn't do shit in practice either. And then like Denzel Mims, he was thoroughly underwhelming at practice as well. And then of course it showed up on actual game day as well.
Yeah, and before I even say hello to the chat, which I appreciate some people being in here before you even started, but kind of just getting into that right off the bat, Kyle, with the whole Joe Tippmann thing, you've been hearing about that. Like he's not even playing as the center 2. He's playing at center 3 right now and all that stuff, and people are worried, and he's a bust, and we should have took JMS and terrible pick. So what are your thoughts about the whole Tippmann as a third center and Connor McGovern seemingly being the starting center, at least going to the season? He's not playing tonight.
I mean, I'm not at all surprised that McGovern is over him on the depth chart at this point in the season. That's like not surprising to me in the least. It's a little bit surprising that Schweitzer is over him, but the coaching staff could just be of the mindset that, like, hey, listen, like we love the guy's talent and everything. And I remember seeing what was it? It was the flight 23 or whatever. It wasn't the One Jet Strive thing because that's coming out this summer. And they showed kind of one of the staff meetings, scouting report things where, everyone was really high on Tippmann and saying glowing things. So like apparently the scouting staff's really high on him. He seems to be a kid who really loves football. He's known for his work ethic in the weight room and things like that. So if he has a good work ethic in the weight room, you best believe he's going to have a good work ethic in the film room and studying the playbook and things like that. So I think it's only a matter of time before he does work his way up the depth chart. That the talent's there. He's known to be a very good athlete. So it could just be the coaching staff saying, hey, listen, you got to earn it. And kind of being of the mindset that young offensive linemen struggle. And, the Jets do have some guys who have quite a bit of amount of starts under their belt. And for you to, in July, be over them on the depth chart just doesn't make much sense. So I'm not really concerned with that. But like I said, Schweitzer over him is like, okay.
Yeah.
It makes you pause for a moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I brought up on Twitter, wasn't Sauce like corner 3 last year? Like Bryce Hall was starting over him for quite a bit. You had Garrett Wilson, who
good point. Very good point. I forgot about that. No. Let's think about. Let's delve in. That's a very important point. And I didn't even think of that until you mentioned that. It wasn't until a couple preseason games that Salah said, "Oh yeah, the job goes to Sauce." Like he made him like actually play in some preseason games before he quote unquote earned the job.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to shit on like Bryce Hall or anything like that, but Connor McGovern at this point is more established than those guys as well. And then you talk about the communication that goes from a veteran quarterback to a veteran center that even kind of exemplifies wanting to have a veteran on the team, kind of, right? So I could see McGovern winning that job and seeing exactly what happens during the regular season. But for now, I wouldn't panic. And then even with like Brees was buried on the depth chart for a little bit, and you have Garrett Wilson who didn't even play until the second half really of the Ravens game. He was still better than the depth chart until game 1. And now he's, offensive rookie of the year. So we're like 10 practices in and we're panicking over Joe Tippmann and just getting a little bit crazy. That's kind of what I put out the tweet the other day. Like there's a love-hate relationship with training camp because I love the updates. I love the interviews. I love, what's going to happen with Hard Knocks, and I love watching them. I'm legitimately excited. My wife's actually going to watch for the first time, which I'm actually excited. Like she's getting into it because she watches the games. But she watched me, or she saw me watching quarterback the other day, and she sat down for like an episode and a half of it. And she's like, "Oh, like this is kind of cool," or whatever. And I told her about Hard Knocks, so we'll see if the wife sticks with Hard Knocks. But I'm excited about that. But
it has enough of the off the field stuff to keep the average person entertained.
But with all that being said, I completely forgot to get to the.
You're saying you're excited for Hard Knocks?
Oh, yeah, no. So I'm all excited like that. That's all exciting about training camp. But the overreactions are absurd right now about Tippmann and about like even like guys like Brownlee. Like Brownlee has to come out and play well in these preseason games. If he does it in practice and he doesn't do it in the actual games, then his stock drops to coaches. Like, you have to actually be able to prove it. Like Zach Wilson, apparently he's making some nice passes and all that stuff, but when he can't get hit, it's a lot easier for him. So now when he knows,
I gotta be honest, the one practice I went to, he was overall pretty shitty, and that was the one practice where he had the no look pass. I'll be honest, he was awful that practice.
Yeah,
awful.
so I've been here. So I'm not trying to offend anybody because I'm not putting anybody in either categories. I would say from guys like you, from guys like Sabo, guys who I trust, I've been hearing it's not been so good. And then there's been some other people, maybe because of some flash plays, it looks more impressive than it really is. But I've been hearing he's been pretty bad too. But now with that, and we'll tie into this too. I have during the intro, Kyle, it was like 45 seconds, whatever it is. I was looking at my list of notes for the show tonight, and I'm like, I should probably be more professional and like send you a Google Doc and like really lay it out well. There's absolutely no organization to anything I'm doing. But with that being said, kind of lumping this into Zach Wilson, with him struggling in camp to you, and with these preseason games, obviously the best case scenario for the Jets is he works out, he's a stud, he takes over for Aaron Rodgers, he wins the Jets a Super Bowl, right? Like, we all acknowledge that. With that being said, living in the realm of realism, if he plays well, can he convince the Jets he's quarterback too? And if he plays really, really poorly, do the Jets look at him and be like, dude, shit, like, we got to get Bridgewater at this point? Like, do you think he's fighting for quarterback too and for them not to bring in a quarterback? And do you think if he fails enough, like if he looks really shitty, they would bring in a Bridgewater, or is it already kind of like locked up in your mind?
That's a good question. I mean, at this point, what would it take to really sign Bridgewater? Probably wouldn't be that much because, I mean, we're already talking it's August, so I can't imagine his price tag is anything steep. I think if he plays god awful, you don't even want to have him active on game day. And you're with the new rule, does it make sense to dress 3 quarterbacks? Like, you could dress 3 quarterbacks on game day now, right? With the new rule?
Yeah. No, if you have 3, you dress 3, but it has nothing to do with the 53. So people, I feel like there's confusion about this. I think I already said this 2 weeks ago, but it has nothing to do with your 53-man roster. It has to do with your 46-man active game day roster. So really, instead of 46, you have 47.
Yeah.
Or 47 if that 47th guy is a quarterback. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, let's say Zach Wilson goes out and he's going to get a ton of reps this preseason because I don't think Rodgers is going to play at all. So he's going to get a ton of reps this preseason. Let's say that in 4 games, he's got 4 games to do it, which is more than every other team aside from the Browns. And he looks just god awful. And it's just more of the same crap that we saw last year, despite the fact that he's literally in meetings with Rodgers and he had a whole offseason to reflect and get better and study. And we're in year 3 now. I think you have to say, okay, listen, there's no way we want to ever dress this guy on game day. We know what it resulted in last year. It resulted in us going in 7-10. Let's bring another guy in.
Remember his preseason last year, Kyle, like even before those injuries, was against the Falcons. Like his first throw was an overthrow, and the next one was like a pick. The Eagles, and it's like a pick on like a slant flat concept. I was like, uh-oh, like this might not be good. So
it was really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility.
Okay. So yeah, let's say hello to the chat, and we'll go over some things that we've been hearing about camp. We'll go over Dalvin Cook, our thoughts on that, Sean Payton, camp happenings, and then we'll get into like the games and the game and the battles we're watching and all that stuff, which, by the way, I'm like 99.9% sure I will have preseason film. So will be only one of the few places that we get preseason film. So I'll have a review up of the game a couple days after as well. So John Hassel says, this is a welcome surprise. I appreciate you being here. X marks the spots for New York Jets fans. From Simon, I appreciate that. Nania says that, Nania says, John Hassel's Nani's been killing the articles too, and I know he just put out a long one about Dalvin Cook, and he's been pretty outspoken on Twitter about Dalvin Cook, and some people are throwing some shade at Nania, but it is what it is. He backs his opinions up with a lot of facts. So I think if you go into reading his articles with like a non-biased mindset, you're like, okay, shit, like there's a lot of factual stuff here that's pretty negative against Dalvin Cook, but some people just, you know what it is, Kyle, like they type in Google, he's 1,000 or 1,100 yards, like 1,100 yards, he's good. His name is Dalvin Cook. It's like, okay, all right. Let's relax a little bit. Maybe there's a happy medium somewhere in there. But yeah, read his stuff. Let's see, longest 20 minutes ever. Revis and Klecko. Speakers of booth, let's go. Getting hyped for a preseason game. That's when you, to be honest though, I'm always pretty hyped for a preseason game, Kyle. Like I know I only compared it to like touching a boob, but I'm still always pretty excited of months and months and months of not touching boobs to touch a boob again. So I'm excited about tonight for sure. Is it anything compared to the 9/11 game, the home opener, driving into the stadium that at 3:00, whatever it is? No, like that's going to be ridiculously intense. But tonight, like even before kickoff, like my hands are gonna start sweating a little bit. I'll probably be standing. Like I don't know what it is, but I'm legitimately excited as well. As the sneakers to boots. Chicken Jenkins says, "What up, Joey B? Are you still going to be drinking on top of cars when you leave stadiums like you did with the Packers last year, or will fatherhood change you?" Congrats on the kid, bro. Yeah, I appreciate that. I wasn't drinking on top of the car. I drank prior to doing that, and I was out of the sunroof. And for legal purposes, that car was parked. It was not on a highway, so it was parked. I was out of the sunroof. No drinks. That's all it was. But yes, that'll still be happening. I still have those trips. So good evening to Meatball Farm. Congratulations to Revis. Chicken Jenkins. We'll kind of get, and again, we'll tie a lot of this stuff in, Kyle, into the topics of tonight and the game and what we expect, and also from camp the last couple of days. Chicken Jenkins asks, do you guys think and want Sherwood to play tonight? Yes. I 100% want him to play. He has to earn a lot, right, Kyle? It's not just like, in his limited reps last year, what did he get, like 40 or 50 during the year, not counting special teams, maybe even less than that. He has to play in this game for sure. Yeah. Now with that, and kind of talking about the roster construction, something I want to talk about is, and one of the battles that I'm going to be really interested to see this in these next couple of games is like the combination of the Jets' 4th or 5th linebacker, and it's probably obviously going to be Sherwood at 3, right? And we can kind of lump this into with Quan leaving too. And I think Quan got a relatively small contract, but clearly the Jets have some faith in Sherwood. And on top of that, Kyle, a lot of people are talking about, okay, well, Adams is starting at free safety now, right? Like that's the thing which we've been calling for a little bit. And then you have Whitehead at strong safety. And I still think Amos is going to be in like a hybrid linebacker role. So he's like a hybrid linebacker safety, but he's going to count against the safety depth chart. So do the Jets only keep 4 linebackers? Do you think that's a possibility where it's only Sherwood and Zari Barnes? And then Amos is that, kind of hybrid linebacker safety. And then with that, what do you think about guys like, you have Surratt there, you have Hamza there. And then with that 4th safety
I think
spot,
that Harris is a decent shot to make the roster as well.
Marcel, is he still on the team? Marcel Harris?
That's a good question.
I don't know if he's still on. I honestly don't think he's on the team anymore, Kyle. I haven't heard his name in forever.
Then that was stupid of me to say that.
But
honestly, I mean, listen, when he came in that Steelers game last year, I was a little impressed, and apparently he was kind of like a carryover, and Salah had him previously. So okay.
He's a free agent. Yeah.
He won't be there then.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, no. So like, what do you think that? Because like to me, it's a battle between like I'm really interested to see kind of like in the box that 5th linebacker, that 4th linebacker, which is going to be Zari Barnes. But did they keep a 5th linebacker? Because that 5th linebacker, 4th safety is kind of like almost like a hybrid type of role to me. And obviously considering that we have Amos in a hybrid type of role as well. But it's a combination. Okay, linebacker 5, safety 4. Hamza, you have him. You have Crunkshank, who apparently some people like and think he's a good special teams guy, he's a good man guy. You have Chaz Surratt there, and then there's also 2 guys who have been making some noise in camp in Waters, and you have Trey Dean there as well. So, do you think they may keep that 4th straight that 4th safety is like a Trey Dean or a Marcel Harris, or not a Marcel Harris, a Marquise Waters type of guy to fill that linebacker role, and like that lets them only keep 4? It's kind of like an interesting battle between safety 4, linebacker 4 or 5.
I'm not sure I'm totally understanding your question. You're saying, do I think that they're going to keep a 5th linebacker?
Yeah. And
knowing the fact that Amos is going to be in that hybrid role, and obviously he's going to play a ton.
Yeah, like, do you think if they're only going to keep 4 linebackers, I should have phrased that better. If they're only keeping 4 linebackers, do you think that 4th safety may be a guy like a Marquise Waters or a Trey Dean, who's more of like a box-heavy type of guy, to kind of fill like pseudo 2 roles where you might be able to save a roster spot? And Hamza can obviously fill that too, but instead of being labeled, safety 4, it might be 3 safeties and 5 linebackers, but they're going to kind of fill out the same role. I don't know if I'm labeling that well still or phrasing that well still, but
no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I think that's a very good possibility. And when you consider the fact that that's just kind of the style that Amos has, and obviously when they traded for Mr. Chuck Clark, who unfortunately the Iron Man streak ceases to exist when he comes to the Jets, I think the Jets kind of want to have players like that. Mm-hmm. So and just the fact that Hamza was a legit safety in college, converted to linebacker. I think the Jets and their coaching staff kind of wants players like that they view as being kind of versatile. So I think there's a good chance of that.
Yeah, let's keep going through the chat. Rob V, what's up to you, my friend? Kyle, we need Zach Wilson to raise up that trade value. Yeah, but
Who's
it's like
going to trade for him? Come on, who's going to trade for him?
and even if he does, it's like okay. If he raises his trade value, does he raise his value to the Jets where they think he could be a Super Bowl backup for this year, or does he have to suck enough or do you have to hope for him to suck enough where you get a Teddy Bridgewater? Because regardless of what he shows me in preseason, I'm still not overly comfortable with it because yes, it's live bullets, but it doesn't really mean anything. So to me, it's a lot of mental for Zach Wilson, and it needs to be proven in regular season games. And while preseason could prove something to me, pretty much no matter what he does this preseason, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm just comfortable.
How many quarterbacks have played really well in the preseason? Remember Mac Jones' rookie year preseason? And oh my God, he had like a 96 PFF grade for this game. And then listen, Mac Jones has, I guess, been like for the rosters that New England have had the past couple of years, I guess he hasn't been horrible, but he's been far from good. Pretty much every game he's ever played against the Jets, he's been very underwhelming. I know he's never lost to the Jets, but it's not because of him. It's not anything that he did. There's been way too many quarterbacks who've, he's a gazillion touchdowns and no interceptions this preseason. But then when the actual bullets start flying,
well, it's Zach Wilson in year one, Sam Darnold in year one. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it kind of aids my point saying that pretty much no matter what he does in this preseason, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm happy with him as the backup. And so that's still concerning. We'll see what happens, exactly. And maybe if he does struggle, then maybe they do bring in a guy. So maybe that's what you root for, even though obviously you want to root for everybody to do well tonight. But if I had to choose, okay, hey, Zach Wilson playing well and him being the backup, or Zach Wilson struggling and him not being the backup this year, sorry, I would choose the struggling if I could see the future. But regardless, Daniel Murphy, what's up? I'd like to see Dean, Izzy, and Tip. You're going to see, we're going to talk about plenty of people in a little bit and exactly who we want to see. Football tonight, finally. Yeah, I'm really excited. I considered like streaming it or coming on after and stuff like that and having a beer or two, but then I have work in the morning, so I don't want to do that. But I'm really excited. We have the main event. Let's see, I want to see Izzy get 10 touches. Over or under 10 touches for Izzy?
That's a good. I'll say under just because
that's a nice number.
Yeah, I'm going to say under because who else is like a running back on the team right now that's obviously not going to make the roster? Like, how many running backs do they have on the roster right now?
Well, I know who's in it. It's I think Izzy's going to get some touches, but the what the hell is the running back from USC that we got, the UDFA that everybody's talking about? When he initially came here, somebody's gonna throw it in the chat.
I don't remember, but he's obviously probably gonna get some touches too.
He's gonna get a lot. He's gonna get a lot. I'm assuming Izzy's gonna get a lot. I don't think Michael Carter gets a ton, maybe a few in the first drive or two, but I don't really see him playing a ton because he's been like a quasi starter.
Bam will get some touches for sure.
Bam will get but even Bam, I think he's, if you're not gonna get a running back, I think he's solidified himself as running back, 3 or 4. So even with him, maybe like 5 or 6 runs, like nothing crazy, but yeah, the guy from USC, I'm blanking out on his name. My apologies.
Travis Dye?
Travis Dye, yeah. I imagine he would probably get the most touches, but I think Izzy gets quite a few as well. Which, by the way, just to throw topics out that I remember, Kyle, the whole running back situation right now, just really quickly, I know it's not necessarily Jets related, but I wanted to get your thoughts on exactly what's happening with running backs. And they're trying to form like a mini union, I guess, together or whatever the hell they're doing. And you have a bunch of guys fighting for more, for more money and all this stuff. But what are your quick thoughts about that whole situation?
I don't think they're going to win. And I think that they lost a good amount of leverage when Mr. number 2 overall pick, Saquon Barkley, ended up taking, that contract, which was just I guess $2 million extra guaranteed dollars or something, or a $2 million signing bonus, whatever it was. It was basically,
I think it was like a million extra, but like up $2 million up front or something like that.
Yeah. So, you get some extra money up front just in case, God forbid, something happened to him. Listen, teams know the value of running backs. And like we said a couple weeks ago, like a running back could elevate your team a lot. Christian McCaffrey is a good example of elevating the 49ers. But, there's only so many really special ones in the league. You could argue that, Josh Jacobs is borderline special, but what's the shelf life on someone like him? Like Dalvin Cook, legit, nobody traded for him, right? He was straight up cut. And this is a guy who's coming off, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He had like 1,500, however many years ago. And it's like, dude, it would have been unthinkable to Vikings fans a couple of years ago that, they were going to cut Dalvin Cook, right? Like LaDainian Tomlinson, what was his 31 touchdown season was 2006, I believe. And then he's cut after the 2009 season. So just in a couple seasons,
Happens
like
quick, yeah.
you could just drop off the face of the map as a running back. I mean, like that drop is steep. And I think ownership realizes that, and management realizes that, coaching staffs realize that. And these running backs, they're not going to win. I don't see any of these teams shaking in their boots right now because they don't have you think the Raiders, who are in full rebuild right now, who signed Jimmy Garoppolo and got rid of Derek Carr, you think that they're scared that and they're gonna, oh my God, we're gonna win 1 or 2 less games because we don't have Josh Jacobs this year? I mean, they're not gonna cave into his demands.
Yeah, it's just it's the most or the least important position on the field, right? Like it just is. Regardless of what anybody says, I don't think there's really any argument for it. I think there's a few special guys, but in general, it's very obviously you have a very short shelf life. And some running backs will like they'll argue, okay, like we get these injuries, that's why we should get paid. It's like no, it's the exact opposite. It's like that's why owners don't want to pay you, is because you get injured. And you have so many guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round undrafted. Isaiah Pacheco was a stud last year, and he was undrafted, right? Or a 7th round pick or something like that.
And contrast that. Look, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a 1st round draft pick, and then Pacheco comes in, and let's just be honest, Pacheco as a rookie looked better than Edwards-Helaire did at any point in his Chiefs career.
For sure. Now, and then with that, we'll kind of lump that in again. We'll keep going down in the chat once we kind of get through these topics. But with the whole Cook thing, is he playing the Jets? He came, apparently he flew in, on Thursday night. He was like, Good Morning Football on Friday, something else Saturday. Sunday, he watched practice. Fans were chanting his name, which to me is like, okay, I get it, but chanting for RB2 is kind of, but it's slight cringe, but it is what it is. But continuing on, is he playing the Jets? Did he use the Jets to just get more money from Miami, or where do we kind of sit with Cook and your thoughts, and have you looked into him anymore, and et cetera? We haven't really heard, obviously, from
these are great questions.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you the guy's been all over the place with liking this tweet, liking that tweet. Seems like he's willing to sign anywhere if they gave him the money he's looking for. So when he was on Good Morning Football, didn't he say something like, "Hey, listen, just because I'm taking a visit doesn't mean I'm going to sign immediately. It's not going to be one of these deals where, I have to, sign a contract before I leave the building or whatever." He said, "I'm going to talk it all over with my family and yada, yada, yada." But I think it was McAfee today said something like that Dalvin Cook is concerned with how the Jets are going to use him, and he doesn't really view himself as running back 2. And as a guy who, in his mind is what, a 3-4 time Pro Bowler, he's probably thinking like, why should I be running back 2, especially if I'm going to have a higher contract than this kid Breece Hall who you got. He might not like that fact. So I honestly don't know. And by the way, if he went to Miami, would he be running back 1 in Miami? Although he hasn't had to visit there. There's no doubt that his name has been linked to Miami for a variety of reasons. I would say that I'm kind of like 50-50 right now of whether he signs with the Jets. I feel like if he was going to, it would have already happened.
Yeah, I could see him just waiting to mull other offers, see if Miami offers a lot, see if there's an injury in preseason and sign with that team. Because, he could want to win a ring, and obviously that's part of it as well. But if he's only getting a 1-year deal for the Jets, he also wants to make sure he gets enough carries. Why? To obviously get the next contract. He doesn't want to be in a running back 2 role, and if he's productive, well, how is your body going to handle more miles on those tires or whatever it may be? So, I don't know. I'm more 50-50 too. I watched him. It's kind of what I expected. Like the pass protection is terrible. He's not a good pass protector. He drops the ball. He's a fumbler. His vision is pretty inconsistent. But he's a home run hitter, really, really quick, good acceleration, good top end speed. And like the expected yards per carry.
Really, he's got good top end speed. He doesn't strike me as a guy with good
top end speed. Okay, not top end speed. I think, okay, well, maybe in terms of like not top end speed, in terms of like, okay, he's a 99 like speed, but he gets to his top end speed pretty quickly, which I guess is a part of acceleration, but he gets there pretty quickly. But yeah, his vision's inconsistent. But with the expected yards per average thing, sometimes with him, I could see them not grading him properly because he takes advantage of some holes that are only there for a really, really short, time because he gets there so damn quick, where typically running backs don't hit holes that quick. So it may kind of grade out weird. Like there are some holes he hits that are open that other running backs wouldn't be able to get to because of how quickly he gets there. So that might like flub up the grading a little bit. So I think he's a little bit better than maybe his expected average or expected yards per average label's been out there. The label that's been out there that's really poor. With that being said, if he's asking for $6 or $7 million and Hunt's going to ask for 3, give me Hunt. Like, I'm not thrilled with Dalvin Cook. And Kyle, and I know Nani got lit up for this, but I'll kind of back him up. I didn't see, if you put Michael Carter in his rookie year, I'm talking about rookie year Michael Carter, so don't kill me for this, people. Don't completely erase what he did last year. Rookie year Michael Carter on the Vikings last year, I'm not going to tell you that Dalvin Cook's a better player than Michael Carter was in his rookie year. 2022 Dalvin Cook. So Nani has the numbers. He watched the film. I watched the film. A lot of people who do actually watch it are not so thrilled with him. Now, if they're going to offer him $4 or $5 million, he comes to the Jets. He's good acceleration. He's a home run hitter in terms of like he'll get you 2 yards, 3 yards, 25 yards because of how quick he is. Okay, like I'm fine with it. But if you're talking $6-7 million, chanting his name and like treating him like some stud running back, he's not that. He's a running back too. And he's if he was a starting running back on a team who didn't run block for him so damn well, he'd be a bad running back, like a starting running back. So it just is what it is. That's what he is to me. So
I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that they think that the projected contract for Cook would be like 2 years, $18 million. I mean, I have no interest in that.
I would have serious questions about Joe Douglas. Like, and like, there's some moves I like, don't like. Like, okay, I get the Whitehead thing. I get the Tomlinson thing, even though I don't agree with the contract. If he signed Cook for 2 years, $18 million, I have serious questions about him as a GM and like their ability to evaluate film because it was not that good.
And just like, my thinking is why? I understand like you're in win now mode, but just think about Rodgers' comments. Like he said that, part of the reason he took a pay cut, so to speak, is because, the NFL, as opposed to when I got in the league, there's so much more trades that happen now, during training camp and even at the deadline where you see big names move. And immediately that gets me thinking of, someone like Davante Adams, like being a realistic possibility, because I mean, the most unrealistic thing to me is that the Raiders have to take like a huge cap hit or whatever to trade him away. But I don't really see him being very happy with Jimmy Garoppolo, who can't throw the ball deep or anything. And it's just overall not a good quarterback, in my opinion, despite whatever his record is. And of course, Adams in the twilight of his career. Yeah, he did play for the Raiders. You got to play for the home team that you grew up being a fan with, but don't you want to get a ring at some point? And you still got the massive contract and stuff. So you can come over to the Jets. But so like, I'm thinking like, okay, well, cap is still an issue to be concerned with. You got Breece Hall, who's obviously running back 1, and you're going to have him on this cheap contract. And Rodgers is saying he's doing 2-3 years with the Jets now. He's pretty much confirmed that. You got Breece on this dirt cheap contract for 3 years, which hopefully lines up for 3 years of Aaron Rodgers. Spend the resources elsewhere. Spend it on somebody like Davante. Why are you going to spend $18 million, $9 million a year on average on a can we say washed running back? I mean, this is not 2020 Dalvin Cook. I have no problem saying he's washed. I'm not saying he's like out of
if you're expecting Dalvin Cook, like the Dalvin Cook, it's purely based on the name on the nameplate. It's not the player anymore.
Yeah, so I know. I just think it's a stupid allocation of resources. I get being all in for these Rodgers seasons and making a name, making a run at a big name who's scored a lot of fantasy points and stuff throughout the years. He's an upgrade over someone like a Bam Knight. He's an upgrade over Michael Carter of last year. I get that. But I mean, come on. How much of a big upgrade is he at that position versus Davante Adams as an upgrade over Corey Davis? I mean, come on.
Yeah. And again, kind of lumping into a ton of topics. I'm really behind in the chat, which I'm obviously known for doing. So we'll get to that, but I'm going to lump into something else. But yeah, Cook, again, $4 or $5 million, I'm okay with it. $7-8 million, even $6 million. Give me Hunt, give me Fournette, give me somebody if you're not so comfortable. And again, the thing with him too is he's a really bad pass.
Did Fournette sign with the Bills, or am I mistaken?
I think you're mistaken. But yeah, and some of the problem with his pass protection was like he really lacked effort in it too, which is a big problem for me. Maybe if in a Super Bowl year, he'd want to do it for Rodgers, but then again, the Vikings were like 11-3 at some point or 10-3 at some point. Like you'd hope he'd protect for Kirk Cousins, but nonetheless, and with that whole because you talked about the trade deadline thing, gotta lump that into the Aaron Rodgers thing, Kyle, which we'll talk about later. Ignore that topic for now. But with that whole trade deadline thing and Aaron Rodgers bringing up that trade deadline thing and who can become available, you talk about Davante Adams. The contract is absurd. So I doubt it happens. Could it happen? Is that the pipe dream? Maybe. Could it be Mike Evans, who we've talked about I don't know how long we've been mentioning his name, probably since February. Mike Evans. Could that happen? Or, which I would hope it would be, something we need even more. And at the midseason point where, okay, we're pushing for the Super Bowl, what may be a problem at week 8 or 9, 10 with this team, Kyle? If something's going to really sink the season, what do you think it's going to be?
Offensive line.
Okay. So are they going to look there at offensive line in week 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever the trade deadline is, and say, we are going all in for a tackle, whoever it may be, on whatever team it may be? So do you see that as a possibility? Because I get that receiver would be nice, and a lot of people are talking about Devontae Adams and Mike Evans, all that stuff. To me, if you're going to spend a lot of resources at any spot on the team right now, it's tackle, because there's been some concerns. Becton's been looking better, but still, overall, I would say training camp probably stock a little bit down, even though his comments recently, which we'll talk about later, stock up for his comments, which I like. Brown's been out. Billy Turner's getting smacked. Max Mitchell might be a decent right tackle, but that's still unconfirmed. So I am concerned about tackle. So with that being said, do you think that the trade deadline, a move like that might happen? And then, kind of lump that into Aaron Rodgers kind of actually like foreshadowing that and actually saying it.
I absolutely do think it's a possibility. I mean, Joe Douglas has stated, I don't know how many press conferences or interviews he's done throughout the years, but it seems like almost every time when people get into his philosophy of football, he said the Jets are always going to be good in the trenches. Offensive lineman himself, and it's not just talk. The guy has done a lot to allocate resources in terms of signing free agents and drafting guys and spending early draft picks on offensive linemen. If one became available, the only reason I mentioned a name like Devontae, it just seems like it's more of a name that you could easily link to the Jets because of his connection with Rodgers and the coaching staff. I just don't know which lineman that would be. Now, with his contract holdout, Zach Martin came to mind, but that doesn't seem very realistic because now I know these guys, I know he's played tackle. He was a college tackle, if I'm not mistaken. And he did play tackle when Tyron Smith went down a couple years ago, if I'm also not mistaken as well. But you're not going to take a 30-something-year-old Zach Martin, who is maybe the best guard in the league and has been for like a decade or just about, and all of a sudden move him to tackle at this point in his career. That's not going to happen. But, he's a name who, man, I wish we didn't have that Lakin contract and we could trade for Zach Martin. That would be pretty damn cool. So I just don't know which lineman it would be. Tunsil was a name who was thrown out there, last year, but then they signed him to a big mega deal. So the Texans aren't going to get rid of him after just signing him to that big mega deal, even though they already knew that they were in rebuilding. So
the thing I mentioned,
I don't know.
Yeah, the thing I mentioned last week, Kyle, I said I didn't really have a name. I think what you do if you really want to figure it out, and obviously this is not like a lockdown formula, but look at guys who are like 28 to 30 years old, maybe even like 32 years old on bad teams who like don't have a guy they're developing. Like the Bucks. Like the Bucks are a team who may want to get rid of a tackle because they're not going anywhere right now. But you don't really necessarily want to look at the Texans because they're developing a young quarterback, right? Like you don't want to look at the Panthers. You don't want to look at some of these teams, but some of the teams aren't really going anywhere. Like let's say the Vikings, if they're going to get rid of Kirk Cousins next year and their start of their season looks like shit and they're not going to make the playoffs, and maybe they want to get rid of a guy.
Fair point.
I don't know exactly who it would be, but if they're going to do something midseason, yeah, Devontae Adams sounds nice, but I think if anything, it's going to be tackle because that may sink the season. Obviously, it's hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully Becton comes out and hopefully he freaking dominates. Like I want Becton to be rookie year Becton on the right side and dominate, and all these guys and Max Mitchell to dominate, but we have to prepare for the worst sometimes, Kyle, obviously. So, but with that being
I'm
said,
much more concerned with tackle and offensive line in general than I am with the receiving core.
Yeah, and kind of lumping that in just because we talked about the trade deadline and the pay cut. Obviously, you didn't talk about the pay cut last week, but what are your thoughts about Rodgers taking $35 million with the Jets? Now, obviously, all but confirming 2 years, maybe even 3 years, and kind of what it shows to the team and what it allows them to do.
I promise I wasn't being a plagiarist on Twitter, or X as it's called now, apparently, when I said something about like this alone justifies purchasing a Rodgers jersey, because apparently you had a similar tweet like a minute or two before me. But I thought that was a really cool move. I was honestly very surprised. You texted me. You broke the news to me. I didn't know about it prior to that.
Oh, yeah, which, by the way, Kyle, I said that. I was like, I think Rodgers takes a little bit less over the next couple of years. We're like, I don't think so. Will quarterbacks have done that, blah, blah, blah. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like there's just so few examples of it. I mean, even Peyton Manning didn't do it. Like Peyton Manning, sure, he went to another team out of kind of necessity. The Colts got rid of him, but it's not like he took like a massive pay cut or anything like that. I mean, like the only example I can really think of is Tom Brady. And just, it's just funny, like go on Twitter and just so many Packers fans are like, where was this type of energy when you were with us for all these years and stuff? And we were trying to make Super Bowl runs. So I just wasn't expecting it, but I was certainly very pleasantly surprised. It's really cool, man. I mean, truthfully, I mean, like we were so concerned about the Rodgers trade, thinking like, oh man, what if this guy only comes here for 1 year? Sure, we make the playoffs and then we get bounced in the first round. Like that's going to suck. It's going to set us back getting rid of a first round pick and then some.
If I came back from the future, Kyle, I said, butterfly effect, don't change anything you do. It's like you're panicking the entire time after you hear me say this. I said, Rodgers is going to take a $35 million pay cut. He's staying for 2 years and all this is what happens. And you're like, holy shit, Joe, like really got to get Rodgers all this stuff. So if you told us this months ago, like how freaking excited would we be about it?
We would have been sign us up immediately. Forget all the Derek Carr shit. Like, you're telling me I can get Rodgers 2-3 years. He's going to take a pay cut. He's going to be all in. All the young guys are, going to be inspired by him. He's going to do all the voluntary, workouts, off-season program. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, like 3 years. I mean, obviously it's going to be on a year-to-year basis. He said, I got to see how my body holds up. And I respect that level of honesty. But when they were talking this Hall of Fame, the comment, he said that's 7 or 8 years down the road, which basically means like 3 years is a legit possibility. And Tom Brady did 3 years with the Bucks at an older age. So dude, if we get him for 3, I mean, that is so worth the capital that we gave up. Let's just hope that, he takes good care of his body and that we can protect him, because that's my big concern. Can we protect him?
It's just so nice too. And I think they'll really focus on the offensive line, maybe even at the trade deadline, especially next year. Like I think they go heavy for tackles. But we'll see. But with the Packers fans, everybody like hates Rodgers, like, oh, he's fake and he's doing this all for the media and we'll see what really happens. He's really a bad guy putting on a facade. And then like pen to paper taking a $35 million pay cuts. Like, no, he's not bullshitting. Like he's actually a different guy now. So it's definitely nice to see.
I would say that out of all the people you can call fake in the league, he's right down there as like least on the list. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who, especially during the past couple of years with all the vaccine crap. I mean, like, he took a lot of heat for that, man. So like, I mean, he is himself. I wouldn't call him fake at all.
Yeah. No, bad guy and stuff. But with that and kind of it's still like, sometimes I feel like I'm taking it for granted because of all the bad quarterback play we watched, but like seeing Aaron Rodgers highlights on Twitter and seeing him throw that ball to Jeremy Ruckert while like fading out to his left is just like beautiful to end practice. So it still looks like he has it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from the practices, that obviously the highlights and all that stuff still looks like he has plenty of arm. Still looks like he's plenty involved with the offense. We talked about him coming into, and it's like, oh, well, his connection with the rookie receivers, his connection with the young guys. I don't think we're going to have as much of a problem as the Packers did in recent past because he's obviously here for OTAs for the first time in however long. He's obviously really engaged in meeting rooms and going to sit at different, lunch tables and things like that to talk to different guys, coaching up, Zach Wilson, coaching up Jordan Whitehead and talking to him about his technique and why he got beat by Alan Lazard on the fade. Like, so, but with all of that, like, how does he actually, how does he look like? He looks, if he's still physically the same he was, and he's mentally seemingly more invested than he was last year. Like, I'm not saying to expect Aaron Rodgers, MVP Aaron Rodgers, but I'm feeling much more comfortable with him being that 4th, 5th, 6th best quarterback than I was a couple of months ago, where I was saying like maybe he's going to drop to 8th, 9th, or 10th. But like right now, Kyle, there's really only 3 or 4 guys I want over him this year. Like there is no more conversations about like, okay, maybe Lamar Jackson or Trevor Lawrence over him to me.
No way.
Or over him this year.
There's no way I'm taking either one of them over him for 1 year.
Really the only arguments and what I've been seeing and how invested he is, it's obviously you have Burrow, obviously you have Mahomes. I can understand arguments.
I do think, and listen, I think
Herbert.
Burrow,
That's about it.
Sorry, I'm just
kidding. No, it's okay. It's okay. No. It's only those 5 guys. I think it's Burrow. I think it's Mahomes, and then Herbert and Allen. And him at 5, him at 4. You could argue him over Allen at 3 if you really wanted to at sometimes. But still,
dude,
like,
I'm not saying he's a pure passer. I'm not saying he's got a more talented arm than Allen. I think he's more accurate than Allen. He's a better decision maker than Allen. He's a better pure passer than Allen. What separates Allen from him at this point in their careers is Allen's ability to,
get away.
Rush and get you 10 rushing touchdowns on any given play. Like, oh, listen, he drops back and, he could beat you with his arm, but if nothing's there, the dude can run for 10 yards and break a couple tackles and then dive on his way to the end zone. I mean, it's just that puts a ton of stress on a defense. Like even someone like Burrow, I think Burrow has a great mind for the game. He might be possibly the smartest quarterback in the league in terms of decision making and stuff. It's easier to look better when you have like, a really good receiving core. But dude, if we're talking in terms of like pure talent and stuff, and one thing I think that Burrow is a little underrated, like he's not a good athlete, but he has got a great feel for the pocket. He's got a great feel for evading pressure and things like that. But if we're talking pure, like throwing the football, I mean, there's no comparison between Burrow and Rodgers. Burrow has like great touch on a deep ball, but in terms of like, putting a ball in there with zip, no way. You said something like, Herbert, I mean, his arm is tremendous, maybe the best in the league. But, if you want to talk about in terms of like, decision-making and everything that comes into being a quarterback, and he's very smart too, but, he's only a guy who's got like 3 years experience. He doesn't have that over Rodgers yet. So you could argue
I'm taking him over Rodgers, or I'm taking Rodgers over Herbert this year. Like, obviously Herbert.
I don't argue with you there.
I think Herbert's stock dropped a little bit last year too. Like he was on a really high trajectory, and I think last year he was like, or 2 years ago, he's like mentioned with
he's come
Josh
up shitty
Allen's
in some
of the
big
world.
moments, like the playoff game, like letting the Jaguars come back and you couldn't score on one of those final drives. And I know it's not all on him, but certainly you're the quarterback. You need to take the most heat out of anybody on the team. So I mean, like in all your film reviews, your 4-part about Rodgers, I hope I'm not misquoting you, but I think you said something along the lines of, does Rodgers still have 95% of, his arm talent? And I think you said like he definitely has that, or maybe more. And I think that I do think it's definitely more. I don't think he's lost 5% of his arm talent yet. He has taken a big dip in terms of his mobility and escapability. I mean, like you want to watch early 2010s Aaron Rodgers and his ability to move around the pocket, escape the pocket, run for first downs. He was very damn good in that regard. He's definitely lost a good portion of that. But if you want to talk about making plays, and he still has some of it though. He still has some of it. Much better than someone like a Tom Brady, much better than someone like a Peyton Manning. But yeah, the arm is, I think it's still very much there. And he's obviously a very smart, very responsible with the not turning the ball over quarterback. So
yeah, it's just so nice to watch him in practice, like compared to what we've been seeing over the years. And I think there's a stat that came up today. I don't know if it was like ESPN stats and info or whatever it was on Twitter. Maybe it was PFF. But it was like the highest passer rating when trailing in the fourth quarter or whatever, or in the game in general. And it was Aaron Rodgers, #1 in the league. I'm like, oh, it's just so nice to see that stuff. And kind of lumping this into another Aaron Rodgers thing, the whole Sean Payton thing. I don't want to get too much into it, Kyle, but your quick thoughts on that, and then Rodgers' comments, which included some of like keep his coach's name out of his mouth, and the comments were very surprising and out of character for a coach to do that to another coach. So he kind of fired back at Sean Payton a little bit. And it's funny too, like you hear national media like, oh, the Jets just don't shut up about this, and they keep mentioning the Sean Payton thing, and they're so focused on that they're not going to win a Super Bowl and all this stuff. It's like, what are you supposed to do if you're asked a question by the media member? No, I'm not answering that. So like, are the Jets going out there and like actively saying this, and that about this, minus Hackett, who did start one of his press conferences addressing it? But in general, Jets players and coaches are getting asked about it, so they're going to answer the question. So the national media is just, it's a bunch of bullshit anyway, but it's kind of annoying. But what's your whole?
And there's definitely a lot less
that saga.
There's definitely a lot less when you're responding to something that somebody else says, like, hey, listen, they started it, man. I'm just finishing it. I think Rodgers' analysis of it was pretty spot on, because he said something along the lines of, that he believes that Peyton more or less did it because if the season doesn't go, Sean Payton, who's probably a Hall of Fame coach when all is said and done, if he comes into a new situation, first time he's a head coach outside of New Orleans, and it doesn't go according to plan, he can't turn Russell Wilson around, and Russell Wilson still sucks, and he's not Seattle Russell Wilson. If he goes out there and says all this stuff in the preseason about, oh, how this other coaching staff did such a bad job with him, he kind of is, setting up the image that like, oh, well, it wasn't all on just me. Like I had to overcome so much because this other coaching staff did so much to damage him. So he's kind of like, taking some of the blame away from himself. I think that's a big reason why, Sean Payton did that. At the same time, I mean, like, listen, Hackett did a horrible job as a head coach, but did Hackett choose to have Russell Wilson, or was that more of a management thing? I mean, like, I do think that a good sign of a coach is that you take a player's strengths and you don't try to shoehorn them into what your view of an offense or a defense is. You listen, if you have a $50 million quarterback, you play to his skill set. You don't try to make him do everything that you're comfortable with doing that you did with another Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers. So that's, there should be a lot of blame on Hackett for that. But at the same time, I mean, like, it's also not his fault if, he was putting a quarterback to, just maybe wasn't as good as, everyone thought he was. So I don't know. And then you asked me about what was my thoughts. And so Hackett said he basically broke a coach's code. And I tend to listen, while the Rex Ryan shit talking was exciting, especially in years 3 and beyond, I was done with it, man. And I never wanted a coach that was going to do more of that, because the simple fact that when you talk all that shit and you don't back it up, everyone likes to dunk on your team and make fun of you. And it does put a lot of extra pressure on the players. So this is one of the reasons why the overwhelming vast majority of coaches don't talk shit. There is a kind of a coach's code, and Sean Payton more or less kind of did that. He did put a target on the back of all his players by doing that. Now it's not nearly to the degree that Rex Ryan did, saying, we're going to win the Super Bowl. I guarantee it. I mean, he did that, and Rex did that 2 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So, I lost a little bit of respect for Sean Payton there.
Yeah, the quote was Rodgers. He said, it made me feel bad that someone who has accomplished a lot in the league is that insecure that they have to take another man down to set themselves up for some easy fall if it doesn't go well for that team this year. But even with like Rex, like, and obviously he like talked a lot of shit, but a lot of people like, kind of attributed to not kissing Belichick's rings, which is disrespectful, but at least he was punching up, like Sean Payton's punching down. So it's a little bit even worse to a certain extent. But yeah, no, that was bad. I'm done with it though too. And like you said, like, you just motivated the Jets for week 5. I don't think they're going to overlook you regardless, because they haven't been there in forever. But to think they're not going to be up for week 5 now is obviously a joke. Like, they're going to try to hurt the Broncos. So, dude,
there's definitely something. I'm just going to say this right now. Maybe some people I think some people like when I give these like personal stories, although it's, it's not like I was a great player or went on and have like great accomplishments at a high level or anything. But I'm going to give you a story that I don't think I've told on one of these streams before. My junior year, we lost to Monroe Township High School, 20-21. And it was some bullshit that we lost on. My one buddy, he scored a touchdown on a screen pass. And then when he scored, all he did was he jumped up and down in the air a couple times with the ball. The ref threw the penalty flag, which in high school football, it moves the extra point back 15 yards. Well, making extra points in high school is not automatic, especially when you move it back 15 yards. So our coach decided to go for 2. We didn't get the 2-point conversion, so we lost by 1 point. After the game was over, the Monroe head coach, he tells the media person, we felt like we could push them around. Meaning like, we felt South Plainfield was small, all this kind of stuff. My coach, he didn't like that. He took that quote from the Monroe coach. He printed it out, made it really big, made it a poster, and put it up in the weight room. We felt like we could push them around. And I'll tell you this, every single lineman on our team was a junior or below. So we all came back for our senior year. And each one of us, I would say, put on at least 20 pounds, at least, from junior to senior year. And our offensive line was bigger. And we beat Monroe the following year. And I'm going to tell you right now, every single one of us, we looked at that fucking quote. Every single day we were in the weight room, we were gearing up for Monroe. We had that game circled on our calendars weeks and months in advance. We played a little extra hard in that game than we did some of the other games. And I'll tell you this, I found a reporter after the game and I told him how, this whole thing about the quote and how it served as motivation.
Sit down. I'm going to tell you a story.
And I said, we felt like we could push them around this year. And the reporter put that in the newspaper too.
Nice.
So this whole idea of, when you talk shit, if you don't think that gives some players some extra juice, it does.
Now, good story. I like that story. Now, hopefully the Jets aren't so singularly focused on just the Broncos because they have other threats they got to worry about, but still point taken for sure. Like, it motivates you. And like even like rivals from other towns, like, guys personally, you might have had squabbles with guys personally. So when you play their teams, you want to beat the shit out of them. So when they play the Broncos, they're going to be more motivated, like 100%. They might throw a shot they wouldn't have thrown to another guy. Like, it's going to get nasty, and I fucking love it. So I'm really excited for that Broncos game. Which what do we have? We have Bills, Cowboys, Pats, Chiefs, Broncos.
I believe that's correct.
Right. So you're hoping they're 2-2 at that point, right? 2-2, 3-2, and then you got the Eagles, right? So, dude, I really in the first 4 games, just 2-2. 2-2 is what you needed at the first 4, right? If you lose game 1, you can't lose game 2. Like, you cannot start off 0-2 because then technically you can go back and beat the Pats and beat the Chiefs and all that stuff, be 2-2. And obviously, I'm crazy for even saying that, but losing the first 2 games would be hard to bounce back from, especially with the schedule and with the AFC.
Let's get to the super chat. And by the way, huge apologies, Nose Kills. I have no idea why that happened. Nose Kills said he was charged twice for this super chat. Really sorry about that. It doesn't say twice on here. So maybe when you actually check your bank account, hopefully that didn't happen. No Skill says Uzama said Rodgers wants wide receivers to adjust route lengths based on the defense. Under Mike LaFleur said if it's 10 yards, 9 yards isn't okay. Is that more about Rodgers or difference in systems or just small talk? Joe, how would you answer this?
I think that's a system thing. I don't think that's just a Rodgers thing. Yeah, you have plenty of systems that adjust their routes and depths based on coverages and is it a middle of the field open? Is it just like a bender route? Okay, is it going to be a seam or is it going to be a post? So now some coaches might not change. Okay, you're gonna break at 5 yards if you have more inside leverage. I mean, outside breaking route, and if it's outside leverage, you're gonna break inside, and maybe they don't allow them to change depth because it's a little bit more strict. To exactly where you be or where you are on the field, like in relation to the concept. So some coaches do, some coaches don't, but it's definitely not a specific thing. But yeah, we appreciate the super chat. And with that as well, no skills. If that really did happen, like screenshot it and like send it, like email it to me or tweet me, not tweet me, but like DM me or whatever. And we'll send you $10 back. Cause I feel bad if you got charged and you didn't mean to. But we definitely appreciate it. Kyle, do you want to answer any different way with that? Or
I don't think I have anything to add.
Yeah. So yeah, we appreciate it. But with we got to the Rodgers, the Payton thing. I forget exactly where we're going for that, but we'll keep going through the chat.
We're talking about motivation, Sean Payton.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I like, dude, like it works. Motivation definitely works. There's some times you have some lulls, and I'm sure after, beating the Pats, there might be a little bit of a lull. They might overlook the Broncos, or they might have overlooked the Broncos because the week after they're going to be playing the Eagles. So they're not going to be overlooking anymore. So hey, give us all the bulletin board material. But the media and the spin on it was kind of bullshit, saying, "Oh, the Jets keep bringing it up and all that stuff." It's like, no, the Jets are being asked, so we're going to answer the question. Like, I don't get it. Minus when Hackett again brought it up himself. Sneakers the Boot says preseason isn't the most glamorous, but this is a time where roster cuts can make an impact during the season. Yeah, for sure. And there's quite a few spots that we'll talk about later on. Running back, depth at running back, Guidry versus Hall, the fourth safety, Trey Dean versus Waters versus Hamza versus whoever else. We have. Do we see Rucker? Do we see the D-line depth? Is Michael Clemens going to show us that, what do you say, a fucking monster or a fucking animal or whatever he said he's going to be tonight? So are we going to see that? Like, there's so much excitement tonight. Even more so than practice, because then you don't tackle. It's hard to evaluate running backs. It's hard to evaluate offensive linemen from the sideline. I get to go back and watch 130 plays on film and then do a review and talk to you guys next week about it. Like, I am so pumped up for tonight. Now, with that being said, it's still only touching a boob. And week one is the real thing. And like, that's when I don't even know how I'm going to sleep the night before, Kyle, before night one. Or actually, I have work the day before. So I have work the day of. I'm just getting off at 12. I have somebody coming in 4 hours early for me. So I'm going to work for 4 hours. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do.
And you're not going to be able to sleep after 12. If you're going to a tailgate at 3,
no,
you're not sleeping.
No, I'm not sleeping. I don't know how I'm going to sleep the night before. It's going to be bad. Whatever. Let's see. I remember one of you saying Pittman need developing. Don't all offensive linemen, Kyle? Like, it's very hard to come into the NFL and overtake what somebody said before, like McGovern's okay. McGovern's a decent starter. And even if you feel, okay, some people might feel that he's a good starter. Some people might feel decent. Some might feel below average. Let's just say he's an average starter to below average for this sake. Is it easy for a rookie to come in and his first 10 practices, take over a starter's job who's been in the NFL for years and is at least okay? Like, it's not something that he's expected to do. And we have evidence of just last year where they don't promote guys. Ahmad was, or Sauce wasn't Sauce. He was Ahmad. You have, you had Breece Hall buried on the depth chart. You had Sauce buried on the depth chart. You're Garrett Wilson buried on the depth chart. I'm not saying that Tippmann's definitely going to work out, but the panic after 2 weeks of practices is crazy. With that being said, does he need development? 100%.
Yeah, I don't think I really have much to add other than saying I don't know that I use the word developed. I mean, that's just like an obvious a given, just like you said. But other than I did have some concerns, and I was saying that I didn't have a ton of film on JMS. I did say that I liked him a little bit better than Tippmann, and I was concerned a little bit about how high Tippmann played at times. But I definitely see the talent there.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of potential.
Okay, so we have to lightning round a little bit of the chat, Kyle, because I'm pretty far behind. But what's up to Harold? I appreciate that.
Hey, Harold, long time no see.
I'm excited, and it's a boy too, which is fucking awesome. So like football games,
did you announce that last
hockey
week?
Games. Yeah, I mentioned it. I was like, there's no reason to hide anymore. Like everybody knows, like it's whatever. So I told some people. So yeah, I'm pumped. Let's see. Kimberly says, "Are we going to week 1?" I know I'm going. Kyle, you have to be going with your brother, right? You're going.
Yeah.
Gary...
I told him we got to stop by the tailgate, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Joe's a good kid."
Yeah, no. If you're with Gary, just stop by. If Gary's not there, you could actually come. But with Gary, I don't know.
Oh, I'm bringing him. I'm bringing him, and he's gonna be talking a lot of shit.
As long as there's a difference. Like there's a difference between like playful shit talk and like, okay, like people are getting aggressively talking about the team getting loud and shit. It's like, bro, just fucking walk away. Like, let's not do this in the park.
I'll make sure he doesn't do that.
Yeah,
I'll try.
I don't think he would, but I can see him doing that. Who do you guys think that gets that last pass catcher roster spot? It depends.
I'm telling you, this Brownlee kid's got a shot, man.
It's not so Brownlee has been impressing more. And I said last week, I was kind of like preempting people like, hey, let's chill on Brownlee. Like he probably won't make the roster, like based on just a couple of good practices, but
he's not going to make it over Cobb. I mean, let's just
with that being said, he's obviously built upon his good week with another good week. So I think there's a possibility they do keep him, but to me, it's him at receiver 6, but do they keep 6 receivers? It's like him versus Bawden versus Nazaluddin versus
for them
Trey
to keep
D.
them, they have to keep 6 receivers. They're not cutting. In theory, could they cut Corey Davis? I mean, that would be stupid at this point in the season to do it, but you'd save a significant amount on the cap to do it. So I guess that's an outside possibility. I don't see it happening though.
We'll do the 53-man roster predictions, but they can keep 10 offensive linemen, 4 running backs, 1 fullback, 6 receivers, but on defense, then you can only keep 10 defensive linemen instead of 11, 10 instead of 11. And I think you can only have 4 linebackers in that position, or 3 safeties. You can have 5 linebackers and 3 safeties, but you can't. It's going to be hard to fit everybody. But I think Brownlee has a decent shot, and that's one of the guys we'll really be watching tonight. Uncles Stravos, I appreciate. I think that's actually is it
Stavros?
Stavros, who I know is a big supporter. So I definitely appreciate it. I know you on Twitter. Put this toward the computer fund, Joe. Yeah, it's like, so I was just thinking about it, Kyle. I was like, I'm going to Dallas. I might try to sneak in another trip. I need a new computer.
What, Vegas?
I got a baby. I don't know exactly what yet, maybe. But just got to sneak a new computer in, need baby stuff, got to buy into all my fantasy football leagues. And I'm trying to bet, and I kind of want to bet on the preseason games. And I'm like, I
don't bet on preseason games. That's stupid.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bet like the over for like Jason Brownlee, like 50 yard or some stupid shit just to put something on it. But so I appreciate that, Uncle Stravos. So moving on though, okay, let's see. There's honestly so many people this game I want to watch and see how they are in a game. Greg Senat is not one of them. Greg Senat, is he? Am I misremembering Greg Senat? Is he the receiver from years ago, or is that a guy who's actually on the team right now? Because I don't even know Greg Senat if he's on the team right now.
I cannot picture.
No, he's an offensive lineman. I think he's an offensive lineman, but I'm thinking of like a Senat that we had years and years ago at receiver. But I don't think it's Greg Senat.
Greg Sinnott, football offensive tackle, 28 years old.
Jets.
Previously on the Chiefs. Yeah, I couldn't say anything about him really.
Yeah. GTA V-Man, let's go Jets. Let's go. People are so excited. I'm excited as well. I wish I was going to week 1 and work won't allow.
Damn.
Oh, yeah, that sucks. I know I'm taking some personal days for some games. So like personal days, you can't say no if they have 72-hour notice. So I have 3 days a year that I could say I'm off no matter what today. Now, obviously, if you do that on like 4th of July and Christmas Eve, you're going to get some shit. But yeah, I would use a personal day if it came down to that. But let's go. Always great to touch a boob. Let's hope that boob isn't Zach Wilson. Yeah, Kyle, are you expecting not a lot of Zach Wilson? Like, obviously, you said that the practice wasn't so good. So are you expecting him to come out there and miss screen passes and look flustered and all this stuff?
I wouldn't be shocked. I think he'll be slightly improved from last year.
Yeah.
He should be. There's going to be a lot of Brown starters that won't be out there. So, yeah.
Daniel Murphy's saying
not game planning against him. So,
yeah, for sure. And he's lived up his first preseason. But Daniel Murphy says he listened to the Cool Your Guts podcast earlier today, and Nania went on a tangent for about 30 minutes defending his stance on Cook. It's because there's a lot of tangible evidence that Nania has, and when people just bring up, oh, he has 1,000 yards, that frustrates him. So he tries to bring everything he possibly can to the table because, sorry to say, and I'm not sorry to say, but he's right. Like he's more right than other people are right who are criticizing him. Like he's getting a lot of shit for it, but he backs it up. Like Dalvin Cook right now is a running back too. He's not Dalvin Cook of a few years ago. And to be honest, Kyle, like this is what I wanted to bring up before. I'm not saying that he was never he was probably a great player, but it always makes me interested when I see guys like him who grade out well and watch what he did last year and see 1,000 yards. Like, what was he really like in 2018? You know, because you see Amos, and Amos had a really good grade in 2021, and I watched it. I'm like, not so impressive. So I was kind of curious about how good Dalvin Cook actually ever was. But
yeah, it's not like he was ever like Adrian Peterson level dominance, LT level of dominance, Derrick Henry level of dominance. I mean, some guys are like legit like game changers out there, and he was like a very, very good running back. But
yeah. Marvin Guns with one of the bigger jinxes of all times right here. I'm just looking forward to Becton completing a game and upright. All right, well, hopefully that happens. What are your thoughts on Becton finishing a game? Which I don't know if that's going to happen. Thank you, Marvin.
That would be a very positive sign because, dude, it's not just the practice last year where he went down for the year, and then the week 1 game the previous year. It was also so many times his rookie year. How many games did he come out in? It was like at least 3 or 4 games that he came out in.
Yeah. Yeah. And apparently he got a little bit better over recent weeks, but he was getting beat by, McDonald and Huff and Lawson like quite frequently. So it didn't look great. And then he had practices where he was sitting out. But I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, Kyle, I think he came out and said I don't know exact quotes, so don't quote me on it, but something like he just wants to start and he didn't really care about the side. Like they asked him about the side and all that stuff, and he wouldn't really talk about it. And he's saying he just wants to play. So he's backed up on the whole left tackle thing.
Agent and people in his camp telling him the right things to say because listen, it's just not a good look, bro. You haven't played in what I think Nania's article today said something like 690 days or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. You haven't played in that amount of time and you're getting your ass whooped in camp by, this guy and this guy and this guy. You don't really have any leverage to say something like that right now. The team didn't pick up your 5th-year option. Like know your role and shut your mouth.
Yeah. Just quickly, other happenings of camp, because you kind of talk about Becton. Just from the offensive side, Conklin has been pretty continuous in terms of like his impact on camp. It seems like every day where his name keeps popping up and he's scoring a lot of red zone touchdowns. So I think my
looked good when I saw him in person.
I think my Conk hype is going to come to fruition this year, and Conklin's going to be a legitimately good tight end. And again, I've been saying he's underrated by fans, so hopefully that happens. But it's obviously nice to see. You had Lazard, who had that really nice fade touchdown, but it's funny, and I'm not trying to be like sinister or anything like that, but you see people on Twitter and it's and it'll be like, oh, Lazard had another drop, Hardman had some drops, like maybe we should start being concerned about their hands. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how do we not know this already? So yes, Lazard and Hardman are dropping balls, Kyle. Are we shocked? Not to be an asshole, but we kind of expected this, right? But good news on Conklin.
Very much expected it. And yeah, Conklin, I mean, it'd be cool. I know that you've said the stats so many times on these streams that, he was top 10 in receiving yards this year. It'd be really cool if like he kind of like really establishes himself as like legit top 5-ish in the conversation of top 5 tight ends. And I think it's at least possible. It's at least possible. I mean, like he's a good talent, and with a good quarterback throwing the ball, he might be in that conversation. It'd be really cool. I don't know. We'll see. We got a super chat, $1.99 from Dane O, who says, when Tipman bald, does he keep the mullet a la Hulk Hogan? I always thought that was a horrible look from Hogan. Honestly, I was a huge pro wrestling fan growing up. Huge. So much so, like we had our own. I still have these I'm not talking about the plastic belts. I'm talking like actual metal, not gold, but actual metal belts. We had our own championship trampoline wrestling federation. When I was younger, everyone came out. They had their own entrance song and things like that. Yeah. So I was a huge pro wrestling fan. I never liked Hogan, man. Never.
Can I interrupt you something really funny? Because like talking about like childhood and wrestling on trampolines and stuff, it was like I saw like a meme the other day. It was like 90s kids when punching each other in the face was for fun, and it remember and it had a picture of like the sock and bopplers. Remember those things?
Yeah,
used to beat the shit out of each other with those. Like I enjoyed that the childhood where we actually were able to do that. So I'm thankful that we grew up like just on the edge of like when technology came. Like I didn't have a phone until I was 13, 14. I don't think I would get a computer until I was like 11, something like that. So I still had knocked on my friends' doors and stuff like that. So I'm glad we still caught some of that. But I don't think that Tipman has I think Tipman's a little bit more classy than that, but we're not even going to see it, right? Because when is he going to start balding? Unless he starts balding at like 24, 25, 28 years old, I don't think we'll really get a chance to see it. But
listen, I don't really know. If you're severely balding, you just got to be like Robert Saleh. Just shave it.
Just get rid of it. Yeah.
Dude, like, I'm sorry. If Saleh like let the ring of fire, as some people like to call it, if he just let that grow around, it's a terrible look. It's a terrible look.
The guy we go to tell Tom's dad has that. You ever see his hair where it's just the halo around it and just bald on top? It's the same exact thing. Pay attention next tailgate.
Okay, I will. And I'm going to tell him you told me to pay attention.
Dude, I think I don't give a fuck. That's completely okay.
That's part of the reason I'm going to tell him.
Yeah, that's there you go. It's okay. He knows he has it. I know he has it. You know he has it. We can all see it. It's reality. So tell him he has it. It's okay.
Nice guy.
Yeah, for sure. So other little like camp stuff with the offense. We'll go to the defense in a little bit, and we'll get to the game. But again, I kept a lot of these really short, but still no Brown. What's your concern level with that, Kyle? And then we also just have some continuous Ruckert stuff too, where it seems like he's making a much bigger impact than he was last offseason. So I think he really does trickle into the offense this year. I'm not going to say he's going to be a primary focus of the offense, but I could see him taking 35% of Uzama's reps and actually legitimately seeing the field this year. So
I think he can play more than Uzama this year. I would not be surprised. I won't be surprised if he literally starts the season. Well, maybe starting the season is a little bit of a stretch. Several weeks into the season, he starts playing more reps than Uzama. I won't be surprised.
That'd be great.
What was the other thing that you asked me? Was something else?
Brown. About
Dwayne Brown. I'm asking a question here. I don't know. I feel like he didn't really play a lot last preseason. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I don't think he played at all.
So I'm not too concerned with that. I mean, I think it's just a case of like, listen, we got a really old player. Let's just proceed with caution. Dwayne Brown clearly doesn't need the mental reps and stuff. Let's just, ease him in. Mm-hmm. I think that's just mostly what they're doing here.
John Hassel giving some credit to Nania, which you should read all of his articles. No bias there. Anthony says, do you guys think Hamza even makes the roster? I think there's a possibility if they think that he could be like a good sub coverage player.
Does he play a lot in specials?
I think so, but if I really had to answer the question, probably not. Like I haven't heard anything about him, and I think they only keep 4 or 5 linebackers. And one of them is probably not going to be Hamza, but I could even see them
I haven't been impressed with him.
Sneaking in, like let's say it is only 4 or 4 linebackers, but they keep 5 safeties, and that 5th safety is like a pseudo linebacker hybrid type of guy where it's a Trey Dean or a Marquise Waters. So I think they kind of one of those guys is going to fill the Hamza type role at linebacker and be like that nickel backer. So I think one of those guys will take Hamza's spot before he were to make it. I'm not even saying those guys make it, but I think you'd see Trey Dean or Marquise Waters make it before he does, and maybe even Marcel Harris, who's apparently still on the team, like Kyle said, or Chaz Serrata, whoever it may be. But yeah, I'm with
It's
Daniel.
going to be
here
one of these
saying,
things where you keep bringing that up, just like you kept bringing up Flacco last year.
listen, man, I got a few things now. We got Q a little bit. You know, now he's really good. We'll always have Kenny Stills' contract. We'll always have Aaron Rodgers taking the pay cut.
The thing
So there's a
about
few
Q
things.
is I wasn't
Joe
wrong about
Flacco.
Q. I was not wrong about Q. I always believed that he could be good. He just wasn't as good. He took such a huge leap.
I know. No. I think the only things you get like true it's the Flacco thing, it's the Stills thing, and now the Rodgers thing is a nice one.
Yeah.
Marshall Harris is a nice one as well. So Becton getting any snaps at right tackle tonight? No, Snickers to Boots. I'm pretty sure Saleh came out and said
about 20 reps.
20 to 25 reps. Now, with that being said, I don't know if he was. I don't think he was specific on which side he's getting time on. So
I mean, listen, if
really
Dwayne Brown is most likely going to be the left tackle, they should keep Becton at right, just so he gets used to that side of the ball.
And do you think there's any like credibility to people saying, okay, it's him versus like Mitchell might actually win that job over Becton? And part of it maybe
that's BS.
Now, with that, Kyle, could it be that Mitchell has come back stronger, which was his biggest problem last year? And if Becton's struggling and Mitchell's a stronger player than he was last year, and yes, we both say that Mitchell was overrated by Jets fans last year. He was okay relative to expectations, but still bad. But who's to say that Mitchell couldn't be better than he was last year and at least be like an okay player? Like that's a possibility.
Becton would have to be pretty damn bad for that to happen.
So you're that low on Mitchell? Like, is it Mitchell this year or just for the future? Because I don't think it's
telling. Listen, let's just be honest. We want to see more out of Becton just because of the amount that we've invested in the man. And he had some very unfortunate injuries over the past couple of years. Give him a lot of credit in how much weight he's lost to, be a little bit better to his joints. It's tough for them knees to hold on 400 or close to 400 pounds. And listen, Becton had some really, really, really good moments as a rookie. And I didn't really see a lot of really good moments from 4th round Max Mitchell, who, by the way, what's the age difference between those two? It's probably pretty comparable. So like, yeah, can any player get better? But like, Max Mitchell, like if we want to talk about like getting stronger and stuff, like part of getting stronger is just, fully developing into becoming a man and stuff. And, you get some of that with age, but like, he can get stronger, but like, yeah, Mekhi Becton can also get better too, as he, matures and stuff and gets a little bit older. Yeah. So if we're just talking like based on pure potential, talent and all that kind of stuff, it would be really hard for me to say that Mitchell gets the job over Becton. I just really can't see it.
Potential, yes, but with all that being said, I agree with you. I still think Mitchell could be an okay player. Like I could see him being a starting right tackle. He just needs to develop. It's not like it's impossible for him to do that. But yeah, we'll see exactly where. Jared says, I hope we cut Thomas and only keep 9 defensive linemen, more snaps for JFM and Clemens.
I'll say that Thomas did get better towards the end of the season. Like if you look at the last 4 or 5 weeks, he started to show up a lot more. He was a better player than he was earlier in the year. So
keeping everybody, Kyle, is it only 9? Like the obvious 9 that we're keeping outside of Thomas. Is it 9 or 10? So obviously like McDonald.
I haven't really wrote out my stuff yet, so I can't really say off the top of my head.
I think it's 9 without Thomas, but I really don't see them cutting Thomas. Like just based on like the Man of the Year award or with all the shit he wins. Not shit, but you know what I'm saying. All the awards he wins and how much Saleh talks about him, I don't think he gets cut, and it probably is 10 defensive linemen, but we'll see. Teams traded for Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold in the past, so let's keep hope alive. Some people would trade for.
The thing about Josh Rosen, it was after 1 year. Like I mean, like they drafted Kyler Murray the very next year after Rosen's rookie year, which actually wasn't that horrible. Zach Wilson has went 2 years, and the latter year was somehow worse than the first year. And despite the fact that the team got better around him, there's no excuse.
Yeah, I didn't bring this up with the whole Cook thing, but you have Young Stench who says Cook is a clown. Is it a little bit much with like how much he's going on social media and liking stuff and retweeting stuff? Like he's kind of acting like he's, like you said, prime Adrian Peterson going on his free agency tour right now. And it's like, dude, you're running back too. Like, let's relax and just sign. Like, it is getting a little bit annoying to me, the whole media tour with kind of a middling running back. So,
yeah, I don't know, man. I don't really think that. I can't really see it as being a way that, this is going to sway teams to give him a little bit more money. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not convincing teams to up the ante. So you're just getting fans' hopes up. Like, is he getting a dopamine hit out of that? I don't get it.
G says 100% this is a play. I think this is a Cook thing. He's comically in love with the Jets too much, so it's obviously fake. I'm talking about. I don't know if I feel like this is about Rodgers, but maybe it has to be about Cook. He's saying he's looking for that bag because Rodgers gave back the bag. So I don't know exactly
It's
what's
probably
going on
about
with
Cook,
that one.
I think.
Yeah. Let's keep going on here. I'm keep scrolling. Rather hold out for a bigger fish at the deadline. Yeah, I'm not saying to like not add a running back, but if you can get Kareem Hunt for $3 million, that doesn't hamstring you. Where $7-8 million, like that's a lot out of 16. You know, if you sign a Hunt for 3, okay, you still have $13 million to play with, and obviously you can move money around if you needed to at the trade deadline or whatever. But if you're talking $7-8 million for Cook, dude, like it's not going to happen. He's not signing for that much money. I severely doubt any team is that dumb. I think at max it's going to be like 5 with incentives, maybe 6 with incentives. But that's the max.
I really just hope that the Jets just forget about the Cook idea, and even Kareem Hunt. Like the more we start talking about that, I like so many things that Hunt has done in his career, but his numbers did look pretty underwhelming last year, despite having a good offensive line. And eventually they got Watson back for the last 5-6 games of the year last year. And, he looked kind of be a little underwhelming. So you maybe wonder is he definitely on the backside of his career? Mm-hmm. And you bring in someone like Hunt, he's going to take carries away from the young guys. And it's like, if we bring in Hunt, does Carter ever get the chance to get back to rookie year Michael Carter? Do we ever really get to see if we have something legit in Izzy? I don't know. I mean, like I kind of like running with the young guns at running back.
Yeah, what would you do, Kyle? Like if he was signed, what is your decision? I don't have to like exemplify on it a lot, but what or expand upon it, not exemplify. What would you do? Like, would you rather have, let's say, I don't know, would Knight get you a 7th and maybe Carter like a 5th or 6th? Like, would you rather have Knight and a 5th for Cook or for Carter, or would you rather have Carter and like a 7th for Knight if you were to bring in Cook? And honestly, Carter might not be happy enough to even, like, he might request a trade if Cook were to be brought in. Like, I could see Carter being like, no, dude, like, I don't want to be running back 3 here. He's kind of seemed like that kind of guy.
I don't understand. You're talking about trades, like getting a draft pick or something?
I'm saying, like, you're getting rid of the running backs, right? I think somebody would trade for Carter, like a late round pick. I think Knight.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Well. Yeah. Like, if you're trading Blake Cashman, you can get something for Donovan Knight.
Yeah, no, somebody would trade for Michael Carter.
Yeah, what would you do?
I don't want to do that. I don't want to trade Michael Carter.
You have to. We just signed Dalvin Cook right now, Kyle. Who are you getting rid of? What's going on? Tell me.
Well, I don't know that you're going to get – you would get higher draft capital for Michael Carter than you would for Bam Knight. Bam Knight was undrafted. Yep. So I guess it would probably have to be Carter because you're writing out a depth chart right now, and Michael Carter is your number 2 just based on where you drafted him and what he did as a rookie. So – yeah, I mean, if Cook is going to be your number 2, that would make the most sense to trade him away. But I don't like it, though. I would rather just keep what we have. Run with the young guns. There's so many young guys who can come in and immediately have a big impact. I want explosive, young, fiery guys out there that want that second contract. Not the guy who already got the second contract, who's on the back end of his career, who, like you said so many times, even when the Vikings were, 11-2, 11-1 at one point, was giving half-assed effort on pass blocks. I don't want that. You're out there protecting my 40-year-old quarterback. And if you're gonna whiff on a block, give me half-ass effort when you got, a big-ass defensive lineman or a blitzing linebacker coming in. Sorry, I can't risk my quarterback taking a huge shot.
Yeah.
Let's see this.
I don't even know if it's like, and I didn't put up anything specific. It's just a block, but like there's a lot of this on his film where he's just absolutely missing blocks. Like, and Kyle, it gets pretty bad. Like it's pretty often that he's missing blocks and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm more with you. Like I used to be like 50-50 on the fence. I'm more like 60-40 now. Like don't sign him. And with that being said, it's not like don't add talent, but I rather save up that money for something potentially to be done at the deadline, because I don't think running back position like kills this team. I think offensive tackle can kill this team. Yeah. So to me, obviously, I would rather just roll with our guys, but really more in the middle. I'd rather sign a Hunt. Like, just give me a Hunt and then get rid of one of those guys. Just Cook is just, I don't know, man. But yeah, the whole media tour thing is a little bit annoying.
Like I said, straight up Hunt or Cook. I prefer Hunt, but the more I'm thinking about that too, the more I'm thinking I don't want him to take away reps from Michael Carter and stuff. I mean, like, could Hunt potentially be better for one season than Carter? Maybe, but we're also talking about, like, these young guys have a future, and
See that one,
I
Kyle?
want to see what we have in them. Ooh, I didn't.
Some
watch
people
that
are like,
one.
oh, he's good. He's good in the pass game, pass blocking. It's like,
Oh
are you
man, that was
sure?
really bad.
Are you sure? It's littered with this too. He's a terrible pass blocker. So, yeah,
Dude, he didn't
keep
bring
that in
his
mind.
feet on that block at all.
Oh, Kyle, it's all over the place, dude. I watch 8 games. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm out. So it's not just the Nania thing. It's not just a stats thing. And while I could say that some of the expected yards things might be a little bit bullshit with him, and there is still something to his game, if you're acting like he's running back 1 or like he comes in, the Jets have automatically the best running back duo in the history of the NFL, like, got to relax. Because, again, you're telling me 2021 Michael Carter or Dalvin Cook this upcoming year, I'm taking Michael Carter in 2021 over what Dalvin Cook was in 2022. Might sound crazy, but again, actually, Kyle, should I just pull up a bunch of Cook plays and be like an asshole, or just to hammer home the point, or should I just keep going to? I'll keep going to the chat.
Well, why don't you do that? And I could maybe go through some of the chat while you're doing that.
Well, if you want to scroll back to 601 in the chat, that's where I'm at. So if you want to just go through the comments at 601, and I'm just going to pull up just a couple of more. I'm not going to do anything crazy with the whole Cook thing. But
601, okay.
601. So find stuff from there, and then I'll just pull some plays just to bring up the point. I'll help my boy out a little bit.
All right. Daniel Murphy at 601. I think Rodgers has always been the same guy. Just think he was in a toxic situation before. Was it toxic? I mean, I know he was unhappy with the fact that he wanted them to draft more receivers in maybe the first round or something like that. Rodgers has been cool like Verlander was. Is that a baseball reference? Because I don't know enough about baseball to really be able to say. Daniel also says Mahomes, Burrow, maybe Herbert, the only guys who would maybe take over Rodgers this year. Like I said, Mahomes is definitely the one who you say, okay, no doubt about it. But the other two, you can make arguments for Rodgers for 1 year over them.
Can you see all this, Kyle?
I could see all your files, yeah.
If you see the play?
I can see the play, but it's small. Maybe maximize the window.
Okay, yeah, I'll just like that.
Or drag it. Okay. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
All right, so
here's another one.
That's another really bad one.
Okay, keep going. I'll keep.
Okay, Daniel Murphy. Allen has a tendency for turnovers. Yeah, so one thing I keep wondering about Allen is how much of a step down did he take this year because he doesn't have Giants' current head coach, Daboll. Daboll did wonders for Allen's career, and then all of a sudden he leaves, and there's no doubt that Allen took a step down. Just in the games that we played him, he had some really poor decisions. And sometimes when a quarterback's making really poor decisions that he wasn't making in previous years, you question coaching and what he's seeing on film the week before. And,
you see this one, Kyle?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I see this one too. Jeez.
Kev Chata. I got two more coming. I got 2 more coming that are apparently back to back here too. If you want to see these, let's just watch these real quick.
Okay. You get straight up bitch there. Doesn't get low there either. Kev Chata says, what do you think of Salah having a middleman relaying Hackett's play calls to Rodgers? In my opinion, that's a telephone game we don't need. So what is he like telling the play to like a receiver and then
I think there's something with
play to Rodgers? Like what is it?
I think there's something with Todd Downing calling some plays, but I didn't hear it being relayed to Hackett to Downing to Rodgers. I could be wrong though, Kev Chata. So I didn't hear that, but obviously if that is the case, then I don't prefer to have a middleman either, but I didn't hear that report anywhere else. So
we saw this already from Anthony Rufo. I don't like him playing behind this O-line, man. It's concerning. All right, Joe, that's at 605, so you can go back to.
Okay, yeah. But you saw half a season. There's quite a few pretty bad blocks there, and they even asked him to do it a ton. But let's keep it. I see Jets Chaos is in here, so what's up to him?
And the thing is somebody like Cook, who does have a receiving element to his game, you expect him to be there on third down from time to time. So if you're telling me that I have a back in on third down and he's a shitty pass blocker, but he can catch the football as a defense, that tips me off to say, okay, well, there's a good chance they're passing the ball here. And the running back is actually not staying home for pass protection. So it tips you off on what plays they might run. Makes your team a little one-dimensional. I'm not interested.
Joe, shouldn't you be drinking heavily by now? So I was considering it, but not to be like a bitch or whatever, but I got, what is it? Like a tuberculosis shot. You have to get them like every 10 years or something like that. I got that today and they're like, you're probably going to feel like shit tomorrow at work. So I was like, I'm not going to drink and have a shot where I'm supposed to feel like shit. I'm going to come to work and they're like, you should probably just go home. So I'm not going to do that. But, is it free on the NBA? Yeah. What channel is the game on tonight, Kyle? I actually have no idea. I have like 1,000 apps, so I'll figure it out, but
That's a good question. It's probably NBC. If G is saying
NBC.
that.
We're talking about Peacock Premium and shit, though. I don't. Is it really just Peacock?
Could be like one of those multiple stream things. I don't know.
Oh God, it better be on something.
If I'm being honest, I thought about not saying this. I'm not even watching the game tonight. I'm watching it on replay tomorrow, so I could fast forward through the commercials and everything, and I could replay it if I want.
Yeah. Anthony G
guys.
says,
I love football. Nobody can question that. I'm just saying, like, I would never miss an actual game live. I never miss one. All right. Blewett most excited about watching 130 plays for film study.
Well, Kyle's talking shit about
built different. No, he is built different. He's definitely
no. I appreciate it. Well, no, I was meaning that saying like you're not excited. I'm like talking about how excited I am to watch 130 plays of a lot of nothing, but like it's better than years past, Kyle, because now the players who are like 50, 52, 53 in the roster versus guys 60, 61 are like legitimate fun battles because the players are actually good. Where we have players who are backups right now who may not make the team, Bryce Hall, who are literally starters 3 years ago. Like, it's crazy. So it's much more fun with this much talent and like legitimate fun battles to watch. So I'm very, very excited to watch the game and break it down and then come on the stream next week and talk about it with you guys and show you some plays or whatever. Okay, let's see. Brees was also bottom of the rotation. Yeah. Calm down with Quickman or with Tippin. Completely agree there. Southern Jet says, folks don't talk about with Rodgers less 3 and outs, meaning the defense. I don't think it gets mentioned enough. We've definitely mentioned it, Kyle, but like just with the defense in general, how many times last year was the ball punted at the 10? And sometimes with Braden Mann's terrible ass, it would go out at the 33 for like a 23-yard punt. But like in general, they would start with the ball at the 50, 40, the 50, 40-yard line, our 40, their 40, whatever it may be, all the time. Like now we're going to be pinning teams and making them drive 80 yards against the Jets defense instead of 50 yards. So it's 100% the rest and legitimately how far they have to drive down the field. So Rodgers does a fuck ton for this defense. And I think we mentioned that before, Kyle, when we were talking about the stats prediction shows, right? We were talking about the defense and it might regress and all this stuff. And I believe in that show I brought up, like, yeah, it may regress in terms of like the actual talent or whatever it may be, injuries, whatever it may be. With that all being said, how much does Rodgers just himself individually over Zach Wilson help this defense? So it's a huge talking point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, drafting Will McDonald in round 1 and, hanging on to guys like Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson in year 2, hanging on to Bryce Huff, you're really trying to have guys who can legit get after the quarterback. The Jets are building an identity and, just think about those 2000s Colts, play with leads and then just let your ferocious pass rushers get after the quarterback. I mean, the Jets are trying to build an identity and, they're pretty good on the back end too, especially at corner. So should be fun, man. I mean, I think this defense is going to get a good amount of turnovers and just when you get the other team passing the ball more, you're going to see a lot more turnovers, whether it be fumbles or interceptions. So, I think the defense will take a step forward on the stat sheet and having Rodgers is a big reason for that.
Kyle, I also want to do this for every single player, but John Hass is looking for your D line expertise. He says perhaps comments on a few players expected to play. I don't know if you want to talk about some guys you're excited to watch on the defensive line.
I'm always excited to watch all of them. I'm definitely excited to watch Will McDonald. He'll probably play a good amount. I remember when Muhammad Wilkerson was drafted in 2011, he played a ton in that preseason and ended up having a good rookie year and ultimately a good career with the Jets. So remember when Micah Parsons, who was, whatever it was, the 11th overall pick or whatever, 10th overall pick, he only played X amount of plays and then he was complaining on Hard Knocks, coach, put me in, don't take me out, coach. And he was all disappointed. I'd be curious to see how much they're going to play McDonald. A lot of that can vary between coaching philosophy and stuff, but I am excited to see him. He's a player who I have began to like more the more I watched him. So I'm excited to see him and what he can do against, especially if some of these Brown starters start. Tanzel Smart, is he going to dominate again? Because it seems like, what is it, 2-3 straight preseasons this guy is dominated. And then it just, for whatever reason, he just doesn't actually get any playing time. I'm excited to see all of them. I mean, I'm not expecting Quinnen to really play a ton, if at all tonight.
He's not. He said starters aren't playing. So for the most part, I don't even know.
They should.
I don't think you might not even see Huff. You might not see Huff or JJ. The starting line might be McDonald's, Clemens, like Solomon Thomas, and Tanzel Smart or something like that. Like, I don't think you're gonna play Woods. I don't think you're gonna play Jefferson, who actually like in interviews. Maybe a little bit of JJ actually. But I don't know.
Okay, out of all those guys, I'm most excited to see JJ and
Clemens.
McDonald. But
Yeah.
Clemens too. I mean, he's gaining weight. He put on how much? What, 15 pounds this year?
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see like how he's used and if they use him more in like a 3-tech.
Yeah.
I think I'm curious about that, but I'm not expecting Clemens to like all of a sudden like, oh, he gained 15 pounds and he's also faster. Like, I don't expect Clemens to ever be a good pass rusher with this team. Like, he kind of is what he is, but he's fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so we'll keep running through. No. We'll keep running through. And then we'll talk about some of our expectations for tonight.
You did say lightning round. Sorry.
No. We're fine on that one. Stavros, it's going to fuck me up. He's having his first baby due in February, so congratulations to you. I think we're January 24th or something like that. So hopefully yours is on the Super Bowl watch. It's going to be like February 11th. I think is the Super Bowl. That's when his baby's going to pop out. So hopefully it comes later than that. His game is at 7. No. It better not be at 7. It's at 8 o'clock. It's at 8 o'clock. Quit that job. So I don't know what that means. Slightly.
I think he was talking about your job.
Yeah. 8 p.m. Okay, I'm just gonna keep running through.
That was around the time you were talking about your personal days and stuff.
Oh yeah, no. I'll quit that job, son, because they said his work won't let him take off for the home opener to come for it or whatever. Yeah, that would be brutal. The only problem with me is like, obviously my schedule rotates and I work on weekends, so it's hard to go to the games. But I'm also figuring out a way to go to what I think I'm going to 10 games this year. So
do you ever work during the games?
No, the only game I'm going to be working during this year is the Commanders game, because that's Christmas Eve, right? That's the only game I'm going to be working during. But my work is also very cool. It's like, hey, it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, one of those days. Like, you can do, I don't want to say nothing, but you could do less than what you usually do. So I'll be watching the game unless there's something going on. Which, my luck, there will be a bad call at like 12:55, and I'll be there for 4 hours. But let's see. Becton said first surgery wasn't done right. Was surgeon referred by Met? I don't know that question.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question either.
Surprising cuts. Let's do this one. Duncan McLean says surprising cuts to get down to 53. So really, who's a surprise cut, Kyle, that you think is coming in the next couple of weeks?
Somebody asked the same question 2 weeks ago. We might be somewhat surprised if Bryce Hall's cut, but maybe not really. I don't think I'd be really that surprised. I don't know who would be a surprise cut. Someone I'd be.
It's almost hard to
I mentioned
say.
this name before. I don't think it happens, and that's why I'll say surprise. Corey Davis, right? Like, let's say that Rodgers, 2 guys, Lazard and Cobb, they're sticking no matter what. You brought in Rodgers, you got to keep his guys. Let's say Brownlee just lights it up 4 straight preseason games. The kid's on fire. And then you think you're a Jets. Okay, the kid lights it up in practice. He lights it up 4 straight preseason games, kind of like Victor Cruz did. Not only do we want this guy to like actually be on the team, but we actually want to play him on game day and we see a role for him in the team. But we got Corey Davis and we could cut Corey Davis and save $10.5 million on the cap. That would be surprising to me. I don't see it happening, but that's why I'll mention that.
I would be furious. I would be furious if they did that. It's almost hard to say like surprising because we've talked about it for how long now in terms of like the roster battles and things like that. Maybe if they only keep 4 linebackers, like, is that a little bit surprising? Maybe if Solomon Thomas doesn't step up, I think that could be slightly surprising. Maybe Hardy would be I don't think so. But maybe that can happen. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really think of much more past that for surprising because we've talked about it, so much. But yeah, if they got rid of Corey Davis for Brownlee because of an impressive preseason and like a Super Bowl or bust type of year, I would be pretty pissed, But whatever. Let's see. Nosekill says different feel this year. We know our starters are NFL caliber, and the season doesn't hinge on some UDFA popping in. How many years? And we've already kind of mentioned this, but like, we'd be like a 3rd round pick, like Lorenzo Malden. Like, okay, well, he's our starting D end, obviously, 3rd round D ends. And now our 1st round, defensive ends are playing 15, 20, 25% of the reps. So, how times have changed, right, Kyle, with some of that. So
yeah.
let's see. Rucker tight end too. I would very much root for that. Not only because of Rucker, or not just because of Rucker, but like Uzama he's kind of mid, right? Like he is what it is, what he is, what he is.
He's a
is
jag.
what he is. He's like a jag tight end too. Like just like so baseline average tight end that if Rucker was to outplay him and he was above an average,
and then
tight
you
end,
could cut him next year and save money on the cap,
Yeah.
and then use that to make a run at some huge name free agent or a guy you could trade for.
This is a move, Chicken Jenkins, I still really want to make, because people talk about the depth or the lack of depth at linebacker, which again, I really think that you have Amos, you have Whitehead, and then you have, So you have Adams at free safety, you have Whitehead at strong safety, you have Amos in the box for that pseudo linebacker role. So even if you only have 4 linebackers, you kind of really have 5 because of Amos. So I'm not so concerned about the depth at linebacker. I'm concerned with, if Tony Adams doesn't work out, who the hell is playing free safety behind him right now? So if you can bring in a John Johnson for $3 million right now, that move to round out the defense would be a bigger add to me than linebacker, because they have quite a few guys for that linebacker role. Like even if you don't carry that 5th linebacker, your 4th safety might do that anyway, because you have guys like, does Trey Dean make it, or does Marquise Waters make it? So they have more guys to fill that box role than they have to fill that free safety like range role. So I would love John Johnson at this point.
Yeah, God forbid, knock on wood, if Tony Adams went down, I think that they sign a free safety very, very shortly after. Kind of a similar situation to when Clark went down. Amos was quickly signed thereafter. So, but yeah, so I don't know. Signing another guy with legit free safety ability would be nice. Anyway, we can move to the next thing.
Somebody said that we're not signing Dalvin Cook to pass block, and I get that 100%, but that's obviously
he's going to naturally have to pass block on some reps.
It's a big part of it, and I can break down runs in terms of like his vision and his lack of consistent vision, but that takes longer, and obviously the pass blocking is a lot easier to just see, okay, that's bad, where the vision thing I have to explain it a little bit more, but there are some holes that he misses for sure, like cutbacks and stuff like that, he'll miss it.
By the way, how
too,
shitty of a pass blocker is Saquon Barkley? And you could argue that we lose that Giants game in 2019 if it's not for Saquon Barkley being a shitty pass blocker, because Jamal Adams abused him several times in that game, and it led to a forced fumble that was recovered by the Jets. So, people might want to try to act like it's not a big deal. But listen, like Saquon Barkley, like, okay, he could do so many things for you. And best believe when the Giants were scouting him, they didn't think, okay, well, pass blocking is not necessarily his forte, but we can overlook that because he's so special in so many areas. Well, it bites you in the ass sometimes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If my life went differently, and I had like a different mindset so many years ago, or, if I really got into like X's and O's as like a young kid, like I wasn't really into, I was into football. I was in like middle school, but like really got into like X's and O's and like was really like very much into that all throughout high school and college. And then maybe you get on like, you start as like a assistant coach at like some lower level, like, would I've made coaching a profession? Because there are some guys who, they don't have to be necessarily in the NFL, but like, if you're at one of these big high schools in like in Texas or whatever, like their full-time job is being a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think there's, I don't know, maybe in a different life where I could have devoted a lot more time to that. I could have been cool with that. But anyway, I think you've had similar thoughts too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. Like if I started earlier and stuff, but most likely rookie to get cut this year. Keep in mind his history of not cutting a rookie in year 1 versus player of caliber roster. Yeah.
Most likely rookie to get cut off the top of my head is
Kuntz.
Yeah, I'll have to go with that one. I'll have to go with Kuntz, and then Converse would probably be after that.
I think if I had to guess, Kuntz and Converse are cut, right? Like if you had to bet on one or the other, I think both of those guys are cut. You hope they make it to the practice squad, but especially because JBC hasn't been able to practice, like you need that forced safety, obviously. So I think both those guys are cut, but they're not so much of surprises. I guess Zari Barnes could, but you really only have a couple of guys. So I think it would be a surprise, but I still don't think it's happening. Is there a situation, Kyle, where if they were to bring in a Cook that they can cut Dizzy? Like is that in the realm of possibilities? Not likely, but in a realm of possibilities where they like Carter, they like Knight, and they're like, we haven't really been seeing a lot from Izzy. Let's get rid of a fifth-round pick.
He was like what, a relatively early 4th-round pick.
I think 5th.
Did he even? Izzy was a 4th-rounder, I think.
I think he was a 5th-rounder. I could be wrong. I forget.
I could be wrong too. Yeah, because Carter Warren was definitely a 4th-rounder. So but I feel like the Jets have multiple 4th-rounders. Anyway, you might be right about the 5th round.
5th round, 143.
Okay, that does make a pretty big difference. 4th versus 5th. I mean, did Izzy even turn 21 yet? I think the Jets might be thinking like this kid is potentially only scratching the surface with his potential. I don't see it being very likely that they would cut him.
No, it's a very low possibility. So I think it's Kuntz and JBC. I wish you could see JBC because he's probably the only other safety on the roster right now who could fill a little bit more of like that range guy, even though he doesn't have great range, Kyle. We know that, but he's more of the Tony Adams mold than any one of the other safeties are. We're like Trey Dean, Marquise Waters, Whitehead, Amos. They're all box guys. So I think the Jets obviously we want to watch Tony Adams tonight, but past that, watch the emergence of anybody else playing in deep coverage. Like if it's not Adams, like who is that next free safety? Because he might make the roster. So that's another good thing I think to watch for. So Southern Jets says with Zach going against such bad competition, will he even be able to get through to his 3rd read or his 3rd and 4th read to prove that he's improved and won't panic when primary is covered and he runs backwards? That's a big thing.
I don't think they're going to make him
go through 4 reads.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to put him in a situation where he's going to have to do much of that. I think it's just going to be bread and butter, easy, take pressure off the kid. It's, the first time he's suiting up in an actual game where people can sack him and punish and abuse him. Let's make it easy for him, quick 3-step drops, just get the ball out, let your playmakers do something. If you have to punt, so be it. I don't think they want to put the kid in a situation where he's either going to get sacked or throw an interception and further lose his confidence.
Cobb, because I'm almost going to guarantee you that Cobb is not going to be cut.
I mean, like if Cobb is cut, it's certainly surprising, but I would bet money, a lot of money that it doesn't
play. Hold on, I want to see. Oh damn it! I just went to invite. I want to see what play I put up on Twitter, and I was being like kind of a little bit of a dick, Kyle, and I was like, Cobb beat this guy for a touchdown. So glad Aaron Rodgers ran the route for him and caught the touchdown pass because like of how people talk about Cobb, and basically he's only on the roster because of Aaron Rodgers, and like it's a ridiculous like kind of sentiment to me. But there's Cobb getting a touchdown and beating that corner just because of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers ran that route for him. So the Cobb hate is a little bit annoying to me, and I think it's just because people see his stats and say, he's a.
I'm trying. What corner is that against?
I don't. Let's see. 23. I don't know who 23. It looks like 23. I don't know who 23 is, but like he's still a decent player. Like is Jeff Smith, Denzel Mims, any one of these guys running this route last year? No. So I don't get it, but it is what it is with the
Well, Denzel Mims went 3 straight years in a Jets uniform without a touchdown. So
that's true. So that's one more than he ever had. Ashton Davis going to make the team. I would say like almost 100% chance that he's not going to make the team, right, Kyle? Just because it's not only because of his play. He's also owed $2-ish million. So you're going to save
there are some players every year that pretty much just make the roster for special teams ability. Yeah. Hardy's obviously your one guy that's definitely the case with, because that guy cannot play corner to save his life. But someone like Barnes is not going to make the roster for any other reason other than he was a draft pick and his special teams ability in year one. I mean, like, you think maybe. So like if you already have 2 guys who are, mostly making it for special teams ability, who do you do that with 3 people? Not really.
Yeah. Alamar Hornug says, how awesome is it that we are playing in the very first game of the year as well as the very last game of the year, which is fucking awesome, which I hope, Kyle, can you imagine the first game and the last game of the year? I can't even imagine how much stress it'd be on that freaking
dude. I would want to go to the Super Bowl so bad, but it's just so expensive, man.
Hold on. Peter Yeti, I didn't say if Rodgers was – Cobb is here because of Rodgers. But it has nothing to do with him making the team over anybody else. Cobb is better than Mims. He's better than Jeff Smith. He's better than a lot of guys we have in the past. I'm saying that Cobb would be on a team without Rodgers. Not saying the Jets, but I'm saying he's a rosterable player. Cobb is not a bad receiver. Like, have we had a better wide receiver 5 in how many years, Kyle? Like, he's a good wide receiver 5.
Yeah, I understand where both of you are coming from. I think Peter's point might be that given his age, what is he, like 31, 32 right now? there might be some teams that wouldn't be interesting in signing Cobb,
Sure.
even if he was better than certain other receivers on the team, just given his age.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. Let me see if where's that one? Like even this play, and this is one I remember, but like he's right here in the he's number 2.
You're talking about where he
Outside.
finds like a soft spot in
Yeah.
the zone, or
No, outside slot. I'm just talking about the secondary footfire release. Like he's still like he just beat the shit out of that corner. Like why I don't get why we're so down on this guy right here. So nonetheless, I'm not saying that he's still fast or anything like that, but he's still a good depth receiver. I will die on the hill, but I'm just saying
he's a guy who can move the chains for you. You expect him to get to a certain spot. You know, he could even get some yak in certain situations.
Yeah.
Could come up big in a big moment, you know.
Let's run through the rest of the topics and then the game, because I got about 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes left before I have to do some stuff before the game starts. But no Quan Alexander, Kyle. Quick thoughts on that one. We kind of already talked about the linebackers and safeties, but he signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
What was the number that he got?
I just saw on Twitter, it might have been like 1.5 or 1.2 or something like that. So very, very little contract. Now, I think there's like still Deion Jones out there, Miles Jack. Like there's still some players out there. But overall, your thoughts on Quan? It just really speaks to Sherwood and the fact that I think Amos is playing more in the box. I'm more concerned about safety than I am linebacker right now.
Yeah, I don't think they're going with any of those other guys. If it was going to be someone else, it probably would have been Quan. But I think that the Jets are just going to say, hey, listen, let's just go with a young gun, and we like what we've seen from Sherwood.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I guess I'll believe it when I see it, but I have yet to be impressed with Sherwood really at any point. Although, you did highlight. What was it? Like a moment or two in certain games last year where, he pleasantly surprised, but I don't know. I just really think that if he ever had to play major reps, we would really start to see some of the limits of his athleticism in the league and
coverage. He's a big tackle.
Dude, dude, how many tackles has someone like Quincy Williams had because like the dude can just run and like on the backside of an outside zone play and he could just chase down the guy. Do I expect Sherwood to get there in time and stop a cutback from a running back, or when a running back bounces it? Can I expect Sherwood to chase him down on the sideline and stop him from getting a first down? I don't know, man. I don't see it.
I'm not like so concerned about it because we're replacing Quan played about, let's say 45% of the reps last year, something like that. So let's say 25% of that goes to Amos and 20% of that goes to Sherwood, right? Like we're not just replacing one guy with one guy. I don't think. I think it is Amos in the box quite a bit. Some other news from camp. Obviously, Q is still dominating. JJ has probably been like the star on defense of camp in terms of like guys who have stepped up to the next level. So that's obviously really exciting for the Jets. I've heard Zaire Barnes, has been impressing, which is obviously good as well, but we have to see it when it actually comes to the games. Tony Adams is our starting free safety, Kyle. It seems like I think Salah said something like the cat's out of the bag now, that he's a good player, should be starting safety. So he's been making some plays. And then past that, I really don't have much else from camp. So anything in comments on that or any other guys on defense who are kind of standing out? And I want to get some quick thoughts about Sauce Gardner and playing air tag or wherever the hell they're playing.
I'm very happy to hear the JJ news. It was funny. Eagle Fang tagged us on Twitter, and apparently Jermaine Johnson has been listening to the haters and wanted to let people know about that on Twitter and sent out a tweet. He's going to prove everybody wrong. And Eagle tags both you and I in that tweet. And then I responded and said, hey, Eagle, why am I tagged in this tweet? I mean, I've always rooted for the guy. I just wasn't a huge fan of his game in college. I'm not surprised that he's taken a big step from year 1 to year 2. But I'll believe more when I see him actually going against, high quality tackles on a week in, week out basis, especially from the pass rush perspective. But, I have no doubts that he's going to get better from year 1 to year 2. Tony Adams, that's no surprise to any of us. And who was the other name that you had mentioned as being? Oh, Zaire Barnes. Dude, watch your film review of him. There's a lot of moments in there where he kind of gets quite lost in coverage. And even on certain runs, he's just in the wrong spot or whatever. And I'm trying to remember what the language of your tweet was when you had posted about his film review on Twitter, but he does showcase some freakish athletic ability from time to time. And you bank on a guy like, listen, Matt Milano was a 5th round pick. And Matt Milano, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Other than him being small, I don't know how Matt Milano was a 5th-round pick because his college film was good. And he went to Boston College, which, is not a small school or anything like that. To this day, I'm not sure. Milano is a great athlete. Don't know how. Other than the fact that, okay, he was a safety in college, if I'm not mistaken. So there was a bit of a projection of moving him to linebacker. That could be the only thing I could think of as to why he slipped. But when you draft a guy that late, you bank on their talent upside. So taking a guy from a small school like Zaire Barnes, it might be one that works out. And if it does work out, the Jets will look like geniuses. So
yeah, he's got some freakish ability. That's for sure. So if they're good coaches and he takes to the coaching, which he seems to be like a good kid, and then he could be a really good player. So I'll be excited to watch that. We'll run through a few more. By the way, the Sauce thing looked awesome. Like they were doing that whole hostage rescue thing. But I wonder, was it like laser tag? Like, did they have lasers on people? They could see that they're actually dead, or was it just like a thing where they ran through and said, was it like a point of gun thing and boom, I shot, you're dead type of thing? Or like,
I don't know. They went into a meeting room where people were sitting on chairs like they were watching film or something. I was really confused by seeing the whole thing. I didn't get it. They definitely were not playing laser tag.
Exactly what it was on Hard Knocks. But Mr. Green says Cobb is still better than Barrios. Dude, like right now, Cobb, I'm being legitimate. I'm not trying to be a homer or anything like that. Right now, red zone, Cobb versus Barrios on a slant.
There's no question. I mean, listen, Cobb is bigger in terms of like, just his height. So like, you expect him, if you want him to high point a ball, he could definitely do that more so than Barrios. I assume he's got longer arms and things like that. So, reaching out for a ball in a more contested area in the goal line, he's got that. He's more likely to shove a guy off because of size. His footwork is better. His hands are definitely better. Barrios does not have good hands. There's really no comparison.
Mega Vegan says, who will rise to the top? I think the players like the most to gain or the most to lose is like, I could see Zach Wilson and Becton either way, like praise or getting a lot of shit after today. But Art says you're on the money about Rodgers taking a pay cut. I thought you were bugging. Yeah, it's just a lot of money. I just didn't think he's going to take it all. Peter says, why hasn't Nosley never been considered at safety? That's what he played at FSU.
By the way, can we pause for 1 moment? Sorry, Peter. 1 moment, Joe. How many commercials is Rodgers going to do while he's in New York? And, he's obviously already had a ton of stuff in the past. State Farm, he's been doing State Farm, him and Mahomes for years now. But I have to imagine that because he's taking this pay cut and because he's in New York, he's going to be a little bit more willing to do. And by the way, even Brady in the twilight of his career, it seemed like he was doing a lot more stuff like, oh, I'm doing Bitcoin now. And, oh, I'm doing this now. And, so I could see Rodgers doing, okay, well, yeah, I'm taking a big pay cut because I want to win rings. And, hopefully Devontae Adams is coming home. I mean, I'd be really happy with that. But even more happy if we manage to get like a stud like Laramie Tunsil, which I don't see happening. That's not going to happen. But anyway, I fucking lost my train of thought. I could see Rodgers. One of my way of recouping some of this money is to do some more of the off the field commercials and whatever deals.
Hamza was drafted to be a linebacker, so that's why he's only been considered a linebacker. It's not he was drafted as safety and converted. They drafted him with the idea they were going to convert him. Do I think that JJ can make the Pro Bowl? I don't think it's an impossibility, but how many reps is he going to get up from last year? Like even if he plays 50% of the snaps, which is what JFM saw in some games, does he have enough reps to really make the Pro Bowl? So no, I don't think he gets a chance to just because of the reps. Not a chance. Kuntz makes a roster. Yeah, I agree. Any worry Garrett is the only offensive player that commands a double team? Every good team has at least two of those players. Who is the Chiefs' second?
Is Myles Garrett even playing tonight? He shouldn't.
No, he's saying Garrett Wilson's the only player.
Oh.
Who is the Chiefs player who demands a double team? Who is the Bills player who demands a double team? That's not like, yeah, you have some teams, you have Hill and Waddle, you have
a stud.
I said minus their best offensive player. So yeah, like who is it?
There's very few teams that have like two really legit receivers. Like the Bengals definitely have two really legit ones, and
the Eagles, the Bengals, the Dolphins. Like there's teams out there, but it's definitely only a few that have like two number ones. But we can keep moving on just because of whatever. Jets love those RAS guys. Yeah, Joe, you have to watch the video. So I watched the video. It was like 5 minutes, but they shot people and it's like, oh yeah, they're dead. But it's like, so they're playing like with pretend guns and like bang bang you're dead stuff, or like was it actually laser tag? I don't know. Ashton should have been gone last year. Lazard not playing, which makes sense because Lazard doesn't need to learn the offense. He doesn't need to learn anything like that. But nonetheless, X-Pac, Stone Cold, Al Snow. All right, so Kyle,
Al Snow actually came to my middle school and did like one of these in your house shows, not with the WWE. He was really cool. He was really, he spent a lot of time with people taking pictures and things like that. He was a pretty cool, nice guy.
So we have about 15-ish minutes left, Kyle, or so. I want to get into the game and ask you some questions about just the game in general. How many spots do you think are legitimately like up for grabs tonight? And I wrote a few down. If you don't have any ready off the top of your mind, we can kind of run through the offense and defense and what we're exactly expecting. But I wrote down a few. Wide receiver 6, right? Like, does Brownlee prove enough to actually make the roster? I think that's part of it. Okay. Fullback, I think Bawden, is he going to play? And it seems like he's on the installations and stuff, so it seems like he probably already has a shoe in. But Bawden, fullback, maybe could it be Ruckert? That's something to watch out for. Linebacker, the 4th or 5th guy, Zari Barnes, Hamza, Trey Dean, Marquise Waters, in combination with that safety 4 we were talking about before. Solomon Thomas. 10th offensive lineman, is that up for grabs? So that's some spots I thought about. Wide receiver 6, fullback, linebacker 5/safety 4, Solomon Thomas, and then the battle between guys like, Yadni Kajust and, Tristan Colon and stuff like that on the offensive line for like that 10th spot if they're going to keep 10.
I think I identified some good positions, battles, and I can't really think of anything else. Kajust, yeah, man. We'd be shocked if he made the roster.
That's one review we had. I put out 30. That's the one review we haven't put out, and I might just not even do it. Just what's the point?
Even though it seems like I'm gonna be curious. You mentioned Bawden. I'm gonna go back and look at some information that I have regarding the Packers offense when Hackett was there and see what their fullback usage was, because I'm curious to know how much, if at all, they want to do that. And okay, just because Bawden is currently the guy, does that necessarily mean like, oh, well, he's the only really guy who's a fullback, so is he a definite lock to make the roster? Mm-hmm. I think just studying tendencies and stuff will give us a big insight into that, but I don't think he's a lock to make the roster. Although, anyway, I'll have more information about that 2 weeks from now. Let's see. I can't think of anything else.
So let's go through the offense, Kyle. Things we're going to what are the main things on offense we're going to be watching out for? Like obviously, we're not talking about scheme, we're not doing anything like that, and we're not talking about necessarily battles. But on offense, give me a few things that you're really.
I'll quote Michael Nania, who's been putting out great content, and I was looking through his article just prior to starting the stream, which somebody on here shouted out as being a good piece today. And one of the first things that Michael mentions is Zach Wilson. All right.
Yep.
In a game like tonight, is he going to fade back and try to play some hero ball and, spin out of would-be sacks and stuff? Or is he just going to try to take the check down or just throw the ball out of bounds? And when he does throw it out of bounds, does he actually throw it out of bounds, or does he just give one of these half-assed efforts, which is almost intercepted, like Devin McCourty had once, or an almost interception like Minka Fitzpatrick had?
Steelers,
yeah. Is he going to be able to click through his reads quickly? Because one thing about Zach Wilson is he's, especially his second year, everything always looks so slow and painful with him. So that's really the main thing that you want to see from him is just, playing quarterback the way it's supposed to be played, taking what the defense gives you, taking the easy stuff. It doesn't always have to be so complicated sometimes, especially in the preseason. So that's the main thing on offense. And then
I'm gonna hit on the offense too, just a little bit, Kyle, because there's definitely a few things. Zach Wilson for sure. How smooth is he through reads? How comfortable is he with the easy passes? Is he throwing balls away? And is he stepping up into the pocket? Like just a few really quick things. Becton, huge storyline. Like maybe the biggest story from this game is Becton to me, because while Zach Wilson has an impact on the season, Becton may be the make or break thing for Super Bowl or no Super Bowl. Like Becton is that big of a X factor to me. So
here's one thing I really want to see with Becton.
Yeah.
This is something that I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to than other things. Becton lost a lot of weight. We've never seen any of his film. I mean, we saw his junior and maybe some of his sophomore film at college, and we saw his first year in the league. So we've never seen him at anything less than high 360s. He's down to 350 now. So that's a good 20 something pounds less than at any point we've ever seen him at. So what I'm curious to see is how well does he move people in the run game? When you lose that much weight, you're naturally going to lose some power and girth and ability to move people. Now, we're saying that the weight is positive for hopefully, his joints, but is he still this big dominant player when he loses that weight? That's something I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah, Becton, Mitchell, did he improve this year? Obviously, you're watching out for Tippmann on the offensive line too, because he's already had negative spins about him. And now, if he plays bad too, it's going to be obviously not good for his outlook, at least to fans. And I'll tell them after the game to relax. But the offensive line there, the depth, does Carter play? How does Izzy look? How does Bam look? Tight end depth, does Ruckert really look like a next level player this year is another thing to watch on offense that we'll see tonight. Transitioning to the defense, Kyle, JJ, does he play? McDonald's obviously a huge talking point. Q's not going to play, Solomon Thomas. So really on the defensive line, it's McDonald, it's Clemens, it's JJ, maybe Huff, maybe Tanzel Smart you're looking for. I'm looking at depth at linebacker. How does Zaire Barnes look? How does Hamsel look? How does Chaz Surratt look? Safety, again, who is that fourth safety right now, Kyle? Because I have no idea. Like, there is nobody who's penciled in there. It's not Ashton Davis. JBC is injured. Is it Trey Dean? Is it Waters? Like, who's going to win that job? So that's another huge one for me. I also wrote down Guidry versus Hall. Who is it going to be there? Do you try to trade Hall? Does Guidry, show you enough to be that backup slot? Because they brought him back for a reason. So that's another thing I'm watching. So there's quite a few things in this game on defense as well as offense. I'm definitely looking out for.
It's going to be fun to see. I'll be looking out for all those same things, and I can't wait to see your film review. When do you expect to have that out?
I don't know. Hopefully like midweek. I'm hoping like by the stream I get it out. So Thursday night, probably looking at like Tuesday or Wednesday. I would have it out. Just because the weekend, like Saturday and Sunday are supposed to be beautiful, so I'm gonna get destroyed with traffic. I'm gonna be tired as hell those days. So yeah, I would say Tuesday or Wednesday it'll be out. I'll get overly excited and I'll record 37 plays in the first quarter, and then I'm like, shit, I got to slow down, and then it's gonna end up being 92 play film review. So no, I'm really excited to watch all of those things, all those battles, and it's not just like, okay, wide receiver 5 versus wide receiver 6. It's really like, again, Brownlee versus Baldwin versus Chaz Surratt versus Trey Dean. Like, those guys are all battling each other. So that like 50 through 53rd spot I think are up for grabs the next couple of games. Right, Kyle? Like, I would say only maybe 4 or 5 spots are like unsettled right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Matthias Simon says Zach is going to be Zach, so he doesn't have a lot of faith. And he didn't look good last preseason. He looked like shit on like 2 out of 3 passes. And then he tore his knee up or whatever it was. I was like, oh my God, that's like such a shitty way to start the season. Checkdowns are not easy throws for Zach. Yeah, we got to see that. I want to see Zach complete his screen pass. Zach is a third-year quarterback, former number 2 overall pick, playing his first preseason game. He's done in the first preseason game, most likely. Art says, let's hope Zach doesn't embarrass himself. Like, yes, that would be bad. But does that also convince the Jets to be like, dude, we can't have this guy as the backup this year, right? So like, it could actually be a good thing. Like, I don't want him to be mid. Like, I either want him to dominate or kind of fail. Like, is that a bad thing to say?
No, it's not actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if they go and sign Teddy Bridgewater the day after this game, I'm going to be happy. So if it motivates them to do that, especially if it's like what, $3 million or whatever, it's very reasonable.
It's crazy to think that Becton is trained hardest to weigh. Yeah, but he's also a big boy. Like, he's not fat 350. Like, that's hard for him to get to. Like, if he wasn't, even if he was like,
that's Kev's whole point.
Yeah. No, maybe I took it like wrong. Like, but like, even if he was like very, very skinny, Kyle, like a skinny Becton, like 12% body fat, which would be a fucking massive human being still. He's probably like what, 270, like 275, as skinny as he could possibly be. So.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be in the 300s.
Are we a little worried about Tippmann? I'm not going to say like it's there's nothing that creeped into my mind, but it's like 1% change. Like, no, I'm not worried.
I would say a little bit. You would hope that a high premium pick like that, with as much talent as he has, the ability to move that he has, you would like for him to be like turning heads at camp and stuff. But it is a little bit hard to do. As everyone always says, it's never new news. Defense is always ahead of offense at this point in time. So We'll see.
For sure.
He's a young guy. I think people, as good as Creed Humphrey was in year one, I think people kind of like, oh, well, this one guy did it. He burst onto the scene and was Pro Bowl, all pro as a rookie. And obviously Nick Mangold was pretty damn good as a rookie too, but those are the exceptions. They're not the norm. So
any chance at all Lakin loses his starting spot? I don't think so. And maybe this is like
it's too much money tied there.
The unfair part of sports. If he wasn't paid as much, then sure, but they're not going to have $16 million sitting on the bench. There's just no way. Now, should it be that way? No. Is it that way? 1,000%. Can't we put Kyle as middle linebacker? Kyle, how do you think Ronald Blair would do as a middle linebacker? That's what I
would be shitty as a middle linebacker in high school. Well, I wouldn't be shitty, but I would not be a good middle linebacker in high school. I don't really have like the open space movement skills to really excel there. And I'm a guy who body type might be a little deceiving, but in confined areas in a phone booth, that's I'm better in those types of areas.
You want Kyle setting the edge. That's what
I was really quick off the snap, very good at making first contact and things like that. Quick, but certainly not fast by any stretch.
Short area quickness Kyle had. Yeah. Cook is using the Jets for leverage. Yep. Chance Cha-Surratt steals a line. I would say it's very slim that he does it. Could I see it? Yeah. Like why not? He's a guy who was a 4th or a 5th round pick who is developing, and could he steal one of those spots? Sure. Because look at Sherwood, a 4th or 5th round pick who's been a backup. Obviously, he wasn't cut for the team, who's now thrusted into potentially a starting type role. Hamza, the same thing. He was a safety to a linebacker. Like you have to develop. Quincy Williams took a few years. Like linebackers, just like any other position, can take a few years. So who's to say that a former 4th round pick or a 5th round pick couldn't be that 5th linebacker? Do I think he could be 4th over the Vikings, I believe?
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was the Vikings. So, I think it's a possibility. Now, if I had to bet on it, absolutely not. But I could see it. I would love that. He's a young guy. So, can't believe Quan got away. Pittman to JMS is like Becton to worse. Potentially, but let's chill. Let's chill, Kevtrada. I know like that's more the negative side of you saying that, but Pittman could easily be better than JMS. And with that being said, Kyle, we knew this before coming into it, at least like based on what we've heard and watched JMS. JMS was going to be more pro ready and look better at the start over Tippmann because again, he's more pro ready. Tippmann has the higher ceiling, but maybe the lower floor where again, JMS lower ceiling, but higher floor. So yeah, we knew he's gonna be ready. So I was getting nervous when the center is 6'6". Lamo, the fuck is Cook going there? Oh, he's definitely behind in the chat. So it's 7:30, Kyle, which is perfect amount of time to go and set up my stuff for work and shave for work tomorrow. Any last words? I know you're gonna be sitting there and this game doesn't really matter. Who cares? It's boring.
I already told you I'm watching it tomorrow.
Oh, I completely forgot you even said that. So I'm watching tonight. But any last words? Hold on, really quickly. Momo Adams. Wilson is quarterback 2 over Boyle. Boyle's not making the team. Apparently Boyle's look pretty shitty, so he's not making the team. But continue. Sorry, Kyle.
Well, Boyle didn't look great when I saw him, but
no.
I mean, listen, I think Rodgers has a lot of say in this team. I'm not saying he's going to play GM or whatever. I mean, clearly, like he probably wanted the Jets to sign Mercedes Lewis, and they didn't go that route. But
there's still time.
Rodgers could have a lot of say in saying, "Hey, listen, I want my backup to be this guy or whatever." And I think that the Jets, especially when he takes a $35 million pay cut or whatever, might be a little inclined to listen to him. So
yeah.
I don't know. I would say Boyle definitely has a shot to make the team and even be number 2. I think it's a possibility. Those are my final words. I've already gone over time.
So I appreciate everybody. I'll be back on. I don't know if Kyle's going to be doing the weekly stuff regardless, but
I will be doing during the season for sure.
Okay, so I'll be doing next week's solo. We'll talk about the game. I'll have a film review out. Don't forget to check out the 31 reviews I put out already. If you want to. I put up a Sauce one. I think it got like 900 views. It's like I'm breaking down Sauce with Marcus Coleman. People don't care, but hey, it is what it is. I'm trying to do the best I can out here. Tough streets, I guess. Nonetheless, I'll be back next week with a film review, talking to you guys on a live stream. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the game. I'm going to enjoy the shit out of watching our 75th guy let up the Browns 78th guy. So I'm going to enjoy it, and you guys should as well. And I will see